Chapter 3574. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Zyra nodded, "You're right. The dark energy in the training grounds of the Inner Palace disciples is simply too terrifying. The destructive power it has on my wounds is also extraordinarily great. These wounds on my body have yet to heal." As he spoke, Zyron could not help but look at the wound on his arm. Under such a dangerous situation, it was impossible for him not to be injured. However, after using the healing medicine, his wound had not completely healed, even though it was no longer a big problem. If this had happened during normal times, it would have been impossible. This showed how terrifying the destructive power of the dark energy was. Senior Brother Ren and the others have no way to buy this healing medicine. It's great to prepare some for them. Shangguan Yingying agreed. She had a very good impression of Ren Ziheng and the others. Now that they had become friends, she naturally hoped that they would be safe. Furthermore, they had made so many enemies in the Outer Palace. Now that they finally had a few friends, they would naturally cherish them. That's right. Di Beichun smiled faintly. I think that if they get their hands on this healing medicine, they would be very happy. Hongzhuang, you should also prepare more of the bombs you used last time. I think that it's simply a great killing machine. It's the best thing to use in a group attack. If I had known that you had such a powerful bomb, I would have thrown it out the last time we were surrounded. The effect would have been even more shocking. Zyron's eyes flashed with excitement. Just thinking about the destructive power of the bombs on the skeletons last time made him feel exhilarated. Following Zyron's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two could not help but look at each other. The commotion they had caused was already very troublesome. If they had really used the bombs back then, the entire Outer Palace would have been razed to the ground. They believed that if that had really happened, the Palace Master would not forgive them so easily. I'll prepare more. There's no harm in being prepared. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a sweet smile. She could not help but think of Nangong Wu. Speaking of which, she did not know anything about the bombs back then. She had only put in some effort in this area to accompany her mistress. She did not expect to have such results in the end. She really had to thank her mistress for this. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang made many healing medicines and bombs while Di Beichun and the other two trained to the oceanic world. My strength has improved recently, especially after the battle with the skeleton army last time. The improvement is very obvious. A smile appeared on Zyron's face. From what I can see, although these skeletons are very annoying, the effect of increasing one's strength is not bad. If there's a chance in the future, we should go there more often. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun could not help but chuckle. Last time, Zyron had lamented how disgusting the skeleton army was. If he could, he really did not want to see it a second time. He did not expect that after tasting the sweetness of increasing one's strength, he would develop a strong interest in it. The reason why the Inner Palace disciples often go there for training is probably related to the effect of increasing one's strength. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Walking on the edge of life and death is the best way to increase one's strength. Chapter 3575. Duan Huali waited in the inner hall for a few days, but he did not see Bailey Hongzhuang come to him. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang would not come to him for help. At the same time, this made him a little unhappy. After all, he had always been very confident in his charm. Every woman that he had expressed his goodwill to had never not taken the initiative to come to him. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang had rejected him very obviously, he did not take it to heart. After all, Di Beichun was by her side. It was normal for her to show such an attitude. It was not like he had never seen such a situation before. Women always said one thing and meant another. If he really believed what she said, then he would be a real fool. However, it was obvious that Bailey Hongzhuang was not the same as the other women he had met before. Her rejection was probably from the bottom of her heart. Although this gave Duan Huali a sense of defeat, it also aroused his competitive spirit. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was not willing to be his woman, then if he succeeded in making her accept him willingly, the sense of achievement would be extraordinary. Thinking of this, Duan Huali could only create some trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. When they were forced into a helpless situation, Bailey Hongzhuang would know that Di Beiqian was nothing. Only he, Duan Huali, could truly protect her. He was very familiar with this method of capturing a woman's heart. Thinking of this, Duan Huali directly called Peng Kairue over. Peng Kairue was not surprised when he found out that Duan Huali was looking for him. He and Duan Huali had known each other for so long, so he knew Duan Huali's character very well. Duan Huali, you call me over because of Bailey Hongzhuang? Peng Kairue went straight to the point as soon as he entered. Hearing Peng Kairue's words, Duan Huali chuckled. Sure enough, you know me best. That's only natural. Presumably, anyone who has seen such a peerless beauty would not be able to easily forget her. It's very normal for you to be like this. Peng Kairue smiled faintly. Based on his understanding of Duan Huali, it was already beyond his expectations that the latter would wait so many days before taking action. If it were any other day, Duan Huali would have already made his move. However, it was precisely because of this that his interest in Bailey Hongzhuang was extraordinary. It was far from being comparable to any other woman in the past. After waiting for so long, there's still no movement. It seems that if we don't do something, we won't be able to capture their hearts. Duan Huali looked indifferent. We have to create some trouble for them, so that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying will come to us for help. Peng Kairue nodded. He could not help but think of Shangguan Yingying. He knew very well in his heart that if he wanted to compete for Bailey Hongzhuang, he would definitely not be able to compete with Duan Huali. On the contrary, offending Duan Huali would not do him any good. Although Shangguan Yingying was slightly inferior to Bailey Hongzhuang, she was still a peerless beauty. If he could attract her to his side, it would be excellent. What are your plans? Peng Kairue could not help but ask. Duan Huali shrugged. There's no need to think of any complicated methods to deal with these outer hall disciples. We just need to find some people to cause trouble and create some pressure for them. Once their strength is insufficient, they will be cornered. In this way, our role will naturally be revealed. Chapter 3576. Just find a few people from the outer palace to deal with this matter. Duan Huali glanced at Peng Kairue. If it's an inner palace disciple, it'll be too obvious. They'll link it to us with just a slight connection. Peng Kairue nodded. I know quite a few people from the outer palace. This matter is very simple. By the way, remember to tell them not to be too obvious. They have to find a reason to take action. Duan Huali reminded him. Since he wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to treat him as a savior, he naturally couldn't reveal any clues. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others figured it out from the beginning, then this plan would definitely fail. I understand. Don't worry. Peng Kairue said affirmatively. However, I think there's still a problem. What problem? If they really encounter a problem that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others can't deal with, I think they won't come to us for help immediately. Instead, they'll go to Ren Ziheng and the others. Based on the friendship we saw with Ren Ziheng and the others, Ren Ziheng and the others will most likely go to help. If that's the case, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for our plan to succeed. Although Ren Ziheng and the others weren't as strong as Duan Huali, they wouldn't have any problems dealing with the outer palace disciples. As long as they took action, the trouble caused by the outer palace disciples would definitely be dealt with. Naturally, it wouldn't have anything to do with them. This was the biggest problem. Hearing Peng Kairue's words, Duan Huali finally reacted. He couldn't help but frown and fall in a deep thought. Seeing Duan Huali's frown, Peng Kairue didn't say much. They had to think of a solution before they could take action. Ren Ziheng and the others should be going to the training ground in a few days, right? Duan Huali was silent for a moment before he slowly said. Peng Kairue thought for a moment and said, they always rest for a while before returning. However, I'm not sure how long they'll be resting for this time. Think of a way to find out. It's best if we act after they leave. It'll be more convenient, Duan Huali said in a deep voice. Based on the current situation, Ren Ziheng and the others were indeed a problem. Obviously, it was impossible to get rid of them, so they could only let them leave. I rarely deal with them on weekdays. Peng Kairaway frowned, but he still nodded. I will find someone else to ask. All right, Duan Huali replied. Find a few people and tell them that you need to form a team. Then, take them with you and leave together. It's best to leave in the next 2 days. I'll find someone to try. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivating in a room. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. When they opened the door, they saw that it was Ren Ziheng and the others. Upon seeing them, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. Senior brother Ren, what brings you here today? We're here to say hello to you. We're preparing to leave for the training ground tomorrow. Ren Ziheng smiled faintly. Hearing this, Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Didn't I hear that you planned to rest for a while before leaving? Why are you planning to leave so soon? Chapter 35-77. Listening to Ren Zimei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 could not help but nod as they understood. In Penglai Palace, when they went to the training grounds, they often needed to form a team. After all, the possibility of encountering danger with just a few people was very high. Moreover, the training grounds of the inner palace disciples were not ordinary dangers. They believed that the strength of the people who formed the team this time should be good. Otherwise, Ren Ziheng and the other 2 would not have decided to go to the training ground so soon. I see. Shangguan Yingying smiled. Then you have to be more careful on this trip. After experiencing it, I found that the training grounds are really not ordinary dangers. As Shangguan Yingying's voice fell, Ren Ziheng and the other 2 could not help but look at each other, and then they could not help but chuckle. Don't worry, we have been to the training grounds many times, so we are quite experienced. Of course, the premise is that we will not be so unlucky as last time to be surrounded by the skeleton army. Chu Jinfeng added, Are you free now? Ren Ziheng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 and asked, If you are free, why don't we go out for a drink? The next time we meet will be at least half a month later. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 nodded and said, Of course, no problem. Although they had only known each other for a short time, it did not affect the friendship between them at all. Perhaps it was because they had experienced life and death together that their friendship was particularly strong. The 7 of them drank to their heart's content in the restaurant. Normally, everyone would spend their time on cultivation. Thus, this rare moment of relaxation made them feel exceptionally comfortable. You're also planning to go to the training grounds in a few days, right? Ren Ziheng looked at Di Beichun. The training grounds of the outer palace disciples are also very good. It is very helpful for improving one's strength. Di Beichun nodded. Indeed, we are preparing to leave in a few days. Originally, after Bailey Hongzhuang had prepared the things they needed, they were ready to leave for the training grounds. However, before that, Master Long found them to help them improve the growth rate of their contracted beasts. Therefore, they had to stay in the Penglai Palace for the time being. They would only be able to set off for training after a few days. However, compared to spending more time in the Penglai Palace, it would be best if their contract beasts could make some progress. Generally speaking, contract beasts needed a long time to grow. However, as a contractor, Master Long knew a lot about contract beasts. When they were young, he could use some methods to speed up their growth. This way, the contract beasts could quickly become the right-hand men of Di Beichun and the others. I hope that all of you will be able to break through and become inner hall disciples soon. At that time, we will be able to train together again. Ren Zimei smilingly said, We will work hard. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. At this moment, Xiren and Chu Jinfeng had already gathered together. Chu Jinfeng, how are you doing now? As he spoke, Xiren could not help but glance at Ren Zimei. He had not forgotten about this matter. Hearing this, a smile appeared in Chu Jinfeng's eyes, revealing a bit of cunning. Not bad. Although I have not completely succeeded, I am very confident. Oh, Xiren raised his eyebrows. Brother, I really did not misjudge your strength. Chapter 35-78. When Xiren chuckled, that's right. After all, I've been married to my wife for a long time. I have some understanding of women. Next time, when I succeed, I'll treat you to a drink when I come back." Chu Jinfeng smiled. "Then I'll be waiting for your good news. I believe it should be soon." Chu Jinfeng patted his chest and said, "Of course." However, on the other side, Ren Zimei and Shangwan Yingying's gazes could not help but fall on Chu Jinfeng and his companion. They only felt that the two of them together were indescribably wretched. "What are you talking about?" Ren Zimei could not help but ask. She had a faint bad feeling in her heart and seemed to be able to guess the general content of their conversation. Hearing Ren Zimei's question, Chu Jinfeng hurriedly put away the wretched look on his face and replaced it with a serious look. "Nothing. I'm just introducing the characteristics of the training grounds of the Outer Palace disciples. This way, when they go, they won't be completely clueless." Ren Zimei frowned. "Are you telling the truth? If not, what else can I say?" Chu Jinfeng asked in return. Seeing this, Ren Zimei retracted her gaze. When Xiren could not help but give Chu Jinfeng a thumbs up, "Your ability to lie has been getting better and better recently. It's so. Compared to you, there's still a gap." When Xiren suddenly felt that his image seemed to have been greatly reduced. Whether it was in front of Di Beichen or Chu Jinfeng, he seemed to have become such a wretched image. This was not his original intention. "Senior Brother Ren, you're about to head to the training grounds this time. I've also prepared some things for you." With an elegant smile on her delicate and beautiful face, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly took out a Chinquan bag and handed it to Ren Ziheng. "There are some healing medicines in here. It should be of some help to you when you go to the training grounds." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ren Ziheng and the other two could not help but be stunned. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually prepare things for them. "Healing medicine?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "That's right. Although these medicines can't heal the wound immediately, they're still better than ordinary medicines." Could it be the healing medicine sold by the Devil Training Tower? Chu Jinfeng reacted immediately. This healing medicine was in short supply in their Penglai Palace. At this time, they also wanted to buy some more, but they were completely out of stock. If they wanted to buy it, they would have to wait for a while. However, based on their current situation, they obviously didn't have the time to wait. "No, this is another kind of healing medicine, but the effect should be better than that healing medicine," Bailey Hongzhuang said. Ever since she had witnessed the destructive power of the skeleton army, she had gained some understanding of the dark force. Although she had yet to find a way to completely resolve the damage caused by the dark force, she had made some improvements based on the original healing medicine. She believed that the healing medicine she made now would be more effective than the previous healing medicine, but still wouldn't be able to heal the wounds immediately. Chapter 3579. You said that this kind of healing medicine is better than the healing medicine from the Magic Refining Tower? Even with Ren Ziheng's calm personality, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words. He only felt that he must have heard wrongly. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's next words made him understand that he didn't hear wrongly. "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. "According to my judgment, it should be like this. You will know when you try it." She was very confident in the healing medicine she had concocted. Since the last time she realized that the healing medicine she had made before was better than the ordinary healing medicine, she carefully considered the ingredients and finally added the medicinal materials that she thought were effective in restraining the dark power. Not only that, she also increased the proportion of these medicinal materials. Perhaps it wouldn't be better for ordinary wounds, but for wounds caused by the dark power, it would definitely have a better effect than before. Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant and delicate little face was filled with confidence. Ren Ziheng and the other two looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was so confident. Although they had some doubts in their hearts, they still didn't say anything. They really couldn't figure out how Bailey Hongzhuang determined that this healing medicine would definitely have a better effect. According to the judgment of the entire Penglai Palace's cultivators, the healing medicine from the Magic Refining Tower was already the best healing medicine to deal with the dark power. In addition, They had never heard of any healing medicine that would have a better effect. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly took out such a healing medicine and vowed that it would definitely have a better effect. How could they not feel strange in their hearts? However, after thinking of Bailey Hongzhuang's identity as a doctor, they understood. It must be the healing medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang concocted after seeing the dark power. It was just that they didn't know where Bailey Hongzhuang's confidence came from. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang was young. Although her medical skills were very good, it was impossible for her to concoct such a level of healing medicine. If Bailey Hongzhuang could make such an effective healing medicine at her age, then the doctors of 100 Flowers Gate should really commit suicide by disembowelment. Having said that, Ren Ziheng and the other two didn't speak out their thoughts. No matter what, this was Bailey Hongzhuang's kindness to them. Then thank you, junior sister Bailey. We happen to be lacking healing medicine. Ren Ziheng's face was full of smiles, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. Although Ren Ziheng and the other two concealed it very well, Bailey Hongzhuang still noticed the flash of hesitation on their faces. In her heart, she had already guessed their thoughts, but she didn't care about it. Thinking about it, if a young woman said such words to her, she would also have doubts in her heart. However, she believed that when Ren Ziheng and the others came back the next time, this trace of doubt in their hearts would completely dissipate. Di Beichen and the others were also smart people. They naturally understood the problem and couldn't help but feel very interested. If Ren Ziheng and the others knew that the healing medicine they had been looking for was made by Bailey Hongzhuang, they probably wouldn't have such an expression now. Chapter 3580. The group of 7 drank to their heart's content in the restaurant and only returned to the Penglai Palace after nightfall. The next day, Duan Huali learned that Ren Ziheng and the others had left Penglai Palace, and he couldn't help but feel a burst of joy. Finally, he got rid of these eyesores. Without these guys, it would be much easier for him to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He had already thought about it in his heart. He could let go of the others, but he must teach Di Beichen a lesson. This guy dared to embarrass him in front of everyone. If he didn't teach him a lesson, it wouldn't be in line with his personality. He must let this fearless guy know that there was always someone better than him, so that he wouldn't continue to be so arrogant in the future. Well done. Ren Ziheng and the others didn't find any clues, right? Duan Huali looked at Peng Karue in front of him, his deep black eyes flashing with a dark and deep light. Peng Karue nodded. I found a cultivator who has a good relationship with them. They have also teamed up with them before, so they didn't suspect anything. Hearing this, Duan Huali's face lit up with satisfaction. That's good. In this way, our plan is foolproof. It will take half a month for those guys to come back. This period of time is enough for us to complete all of this. Yes. Peng Kairui's face also showed a smile. During this period of time, when he thought of Shangguan Yingying, he also felt a little itchy. After all, it didn't feel good to be able to see something but not have it. Our next plan can also start. Duan Huali raised his eyebrows, and the scheming light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. I'll arrange for someone to act. Peng Kairue quickly said. Inside the house. Senior Brother Ren and the others have set off for the training place today. Xiren said slowly. Shangguan Yingying looked at Ren Ziheng and said, By the way, what were you and Senior Brother Chu talking about yesterday? Xiren couldn't help but be stunned, and then said, Didn't Senior Brother Chu already say it yesterday? You guys can only lie to Senior Sister Ren. Shangguan Yingying pursed her lips. I've been with you for so long. How can I not know your character? Seeing that Shangguan Yingying had already seen through everything, when Xiren felt a little helpless. He then nodded and said, Okay, actually it's nothing. I just wanted to ask about his progress with Senior Sister Ren. Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. How's the progress? Aren't you not interested in this? When Xiren looked at Shangguan Yingying in surprise. Previously, when he was talking to Senior Brother Ren about this, Shangguan Yingying was very dissatisfied with his approach. He did not expect her to be so concerned about this matter. I'm just afraid that you'll mess things up. You'll be in trouble, Shangguan Yingying said calmly. Tell me, did you mess things up? In her heart, she also hoped that Chu Jinfeng and Ren Zimei could become a couple, but she was also worried that if they failed, then their relationship with Ren Zimei would be somewhat awkward. Chapter 3581. As Xiren's voice fell, Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The corners of her lips unconsciously rose a little, but she quickly reacted and immediately restrained her smile. Defan usually doesn't see how powerful you are. What's the use of having good eyesight in this aspect? Could it be that your goal is to be a matchmaker? When Xiren, who was originally very proud of himself, immediately became embarrassed when he heard the word matchmaker. Matchmaker. When Xiren's face fell, I'm a man, okay? I don't know. Maybe I've been wrong all along. Shangwan Yingying shrugged, as if she didn't think so. Looking at Shangwan Yingying like this, when Xiren secretly decided that he must restore the masculinity of a man tonight. He must make Shangwan Yingying admit that he was a real man. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at this pair of buffoons and felt that it was funny. You can stop talking about this. If you continue like this, it's not suitable for children, Di Beichen slowly said. Shangwan Yingying was slightly stunned when she heard this. Then, her cheeks flushed red and she glared at Xiren. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Xiren looked at Di Beichen and pointed at himself. This is what Beichen said. Why are you blaming me? However, Shangwan Yingying didn't intend to pay attention to Xiren at all. Seeing this, Xiren looked at Di Beichen again. Di Beichen calmly spread out his hands. For words were clearly written on his handsome face. I'm innocent. It's been some time since you handed the contract to Master Long. I believe it should be completed in 2 days. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and said slowly. Di Beichen nodded. Yes, according to what Master Long said, that is indeed the case. If a contracted beast enters the growth stage, it will be of great help to you in battle. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This was undoubtedly excellent news for them. She did not expect Master Long to have such a method. When she heard Master Long mention this, she couldn't help but be startled. She had never heard of such a method before, but this would be a great help to them. I'm really curious about how strong my berserk, earth-shattering tiger will be once it reaches adulthood. Xiren's eyes were filled with interest. In the past, he had not been able to find a suitable contract beast. Now that he had the berserk, earth-shaking tiger, he was extremely happy. Initially, he had been wondering when the berserk, earth-shattering tiger would be able to fight alongside him. He did not expect that the opportunity would come so soon. He was really looking forward to it. When they come back, we'll go to the training ground to test it out. We'll know then. Di Beichen chuckled. I think Yingying's deep-sea devil serpent is the strongest on this island. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Shangwan Yingying smiled. That's because of the location. Deep-sea devil serpents are good at fighting in the sea. Punkarue confidently went to the outer hall to find cultivators to fight Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, the final result was completely out of his expectations, because his suggestion had been rejected. Chapter 3582. Peng Kairue was confident that his offer was extremely generous and there was no possibility of rejection. Therefore, when he heard the other party's rejection at this moment, he was a little stunned for a while. Senior brother Peng, it's not that I don't want to do this, but I don't dare. Shui Changdong looked at Peng Kairue helplessly. Peng Kairue's offer was very generous. When he first heard it, he was very excited. He was just going to make trouble for a few people. Moreover, it was not the first time he helped Peng Kairue deal with a female disciple of the outer hall. However, when he heard Peng Kairue mention who the other party was, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. He no longer felt as excited as before. His strength in the outer hall was very outstanding. Even in the entire outer hall, there were few people he did not dare to offend. However, the person Peng Kairue was talking about at this moment was one of the people he did not dare to offend. Bailey Hongzhuang? What a joke. How obvious was Master Long's protective attitude a few days ago. They dared to kill people in front of Master Long. Was there anything in the outer hall that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three dared not do? Since that incident, almost all the cultivators had decided that no matter who they offended in the outer palace, they shouldn't offend Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After all, with Master Long as their backer, they were not qualified to mess with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three unless they did not want to live. What? Peng Kairue frowned. He could not understand. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were just practitioners who had just joined the Penglai Palace. It was easy to deal with them. With Xue Changdong's ability, it was as easy as blowing off dust. However, Xue Changdong was telling him that he did not dare. Senior brother Peng, don't tell me you don't know their backer. Xue Changdong looked at Peng Kairue in surprise. Now in the entire outer hall of the Penglai Palace, I'm afraid that no one dares to be their enemy. Otherwise, it's purely asking for trouble. Backer? Peng Kairue was stunned. What backer do they have? Do they have relatives in the inner hall? Xue Changdong shook his head. Senior brother Peng, they made such a big commotion a few days ago. It can be said that it caused a sensation in the entire Penglai Palace. Don't you know? I don't know. Peng Kairue's face turned ugly. Tell me what's going on. If Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four really had a backer, then this matter would become much more troublesome. However, thinking up to this point, Peng Kairue suddenly understood why Ren Ziheng and the others would chase after Bailey Hongzhuang's group so much. It must have something to do with the backer behind them. Their backer is Master Long. Xue Changdong said, Senior brother Peng, if you haven't heard about them, how do you know about them? Lord Long. Peng Kairue didn't care about the culture behind Xue Changdong's words. The only thing in his mind was Master Long. Just the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three Inner Palace disciples had the backing of the four Inner Palace disciples was already difficult enough. However, he was now being told that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three Inner Palace disciples' backing was Lord Long. How could their backer be Master Long? Chapter 3583. Listening to Xue Changdong's words, the doubts in Peng Kairue's heart grew stronger. He had never cared much about the affairs of the outer hall, so he did not know anything about this. However, just from Xue Changdong's expression, he could see that everything the former said was true. If not, Xue Changdong had no reason to refuse at all. I didn't know about this. Peng Kairue's face was a little ugly. He never thought that there would be such a problem. It really disrupted their plan. Senior brother Peng, this matter was so sensational a few days ago. You didn't hear anything about it? Xue Changdong was a little incredulous. Now, almost everyone in Penglai Palace knew about this matter. He did not expect Peng Kairue to not know about it at all. Looking at Xue Changdong's incredulous expression, Peng Kairue was a little embarrassed. He had worked hard for so many days in the training ground. After returning, he only cared about himself and did not pay attention to other things at all. Even if senior brother Peng doesn't know about the matter of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three killing people a few days ago, you should have heard that they obtained 3 contract beasts from Master Long as an outer hall disciple. Not only that, the 4 of them killed more than 100 outer hall disciples, and the strength of 100 disciples decreased because of them. Senior brother Peng, have you not heard this news? Xue Changdong asked. Although his strength was very outstanding in the outer hall, he had to admit that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were really amazing people in the outer hall. Just the combat power that they had shown before was enough for him to not dare to be enemies with them easily. 4 people against 100 cultivators. He asked himself honestly, he could not achieve such a result. As Xue Changdong's voice fell, Peng Kairue could not help but be stunned. Then, a strong light of disbelief appeared in his eyes. You mean the 4 of them are the 4 people that are spreading all over the outer hall? Yes. Xue Changdong nodded. Senior brother Peng. So you have heard of them. Although the 4 of them just came to Penglai Palace not long ago, there are very few people who have not heard of their reputation. At this moment, Peng Kairue was completely dumbfounded. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 would actually be the 4 Outer Palace disciples that were extremely mysterious. Even though he was an Inner Palace disciple, he was still extremely shocked when he heard about the battle results of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. He only felt that the 4 of them were simply prodigies, being besieged by so many Outer Palace disciples at the same time, even he would not be able to survive. However, these 4 Outer Palace disciples that had just joined were able to do so. This was simply a miracle. Therefore, even in the Inner Palace, these 4 disciples had quite a reputation. Almost everyone was certain that these 4 cultivators were absolutely incredible. It wouldn't be long before they became disciples of the Inner Palace. Moreover, given some time, they would definitely become extremely powerful experts of the Inner Palace in the future. In the past, Peng Kairui had always been curious about these 4 cultivators. However, he had only heard of their battle records and did not know much about their names. After all, before he had truly become an Inner Palace disciple, he would not have the slightest bit of interaction with them. However, when the identities of these 4 experts and Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 overlapped, the situation became much more complicated. Chapter 3584. When Xue Changdong saw that Peng Kairui had started to daydream, he could not help but say, "Big brother Peng, I don't mean to say this, but based on the current situation, I'm afraid that no one in the entire Outer Palace would dare to attack the 4 of them, at least for the time being. On one hand, they were wary of the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. On the other hand, they were also afraid of Master Long Bailey Hongzhuang, and the other 3 did not receive any punishment for offending Master Long's dignity. But that did not mean that they could do the same. If they were the main characters, Master Long would have chased them out long ago." Hearing this, Peng Kairui nodded. He also understood that Xue Changdong was telling the truth. After all, if all of this was true, then ordinary people would not dare to attack Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. That would definitely be asking for trouble. "I understand. I'll think about this carefully," Peng Kairui slowly said. Now that the situation had changed, he had to go back and discuss it with Duan Huali. Duan Huali was in a very good mood. When he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would soon become his woman, he could not help but feel happy. Furthermore, when the time came, he would be able to see Di Beichen's sad expression. That would be very satisfying. This kind of thing was as easy as blowing off dust to him. This was the advantage of being powerful. Just as Duan Huali was having a beautiful dream, a knock suddenly came from outside the door. The smile on Duan Huali's face immediately became even more brilliant. Peng Kairui must have arranged everything. However, when he opened the door and saw Peng Kairui's complicated expression, Duan Huali could not help but frown. "Why do you have such an expression? Could it be that things did not go smoothly? We made a mistake in our judgment of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. Now it seems that it won't be easy to deal with them." Peng Kairui's voice was slightly heavy, and his face was filled with helplessness. Duan Huali's gaze quietly darkened. "What do you mean by that? Do we need to think more about dealing with a few Outer Palace disciples?" Peng Kairui shook his head. "They're not ordinary Outer Palace disciples." "What does that mean?" Duan Huali was puzzled. For Inner Palace disciples like them, Outer Palace disciples were the same as ordinary cultivators outside the Penglai Palace. There was no difference at all. You should have heard of the cultivator who obtained 3 of Master Long's contracted beasts from the Outer Palace, right? Peng Kairui asked slowly. Hearing this, Duan Huali was stunned. His gloomy eyes paused for a moment before a trace of astonishment surged up. "You can't be talking about the 4 of them, right?" "That's right, it's them," Peng Kairui replied with certainty. "According to the information I've gathered, Master Long seems to admire them a lot. He's obviously biased towards them. That's why the cultivators of the Outer Palace don't dare to attack the 4 of them. They're afraid that they'll attract trouble. After all, offending Master Long is an extremely unwise decision." Duan Huali's expression changed. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would have such an identity. It was completely beyond his expectations. Previously, he had also heard of the battle results of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. At that time, he had lamented that a few more amazing people had appeared in the Outer Palace. Even when he was an Outer Palace disciple back then, he could not have done that. Chapter 3585. Based on D. Baichen's age and strength, he does indeed have the right to be arrogant. The way I see it, we should give up on our previous plan. Otherwise, once this conflict is blown out of proportion, it won't do us any good. Peng Kairui's expression was a little complicated. If they were only ordinary cultivators, it would not be a problem for them to deal with them. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had Long Yanwei backing them up, so they had no choice but to reconsider. He has yet to obtain a contracted beast, and has always been hoping to obtain a contracted beast from Lord Long. If he offended Lord Long because of this, then his contracted beast would be completely out of the question. Compared to a woman, a contracted beast was obviously more important to him. Hearing Peng Kairui's words, Duan Huali's expression turned even uglier. He naturally understood that Peng Kairui's words were true, but he was unwilling to accept it. Ever since he had first laid eyes on Bailey Hongzhuang, he had already decided in his heart that he must make her his woman. Not being able to obtain her was something that had never happened to him before. Not only that, Di Beichun had previously humiliated him in front of so many people. If he did not get back at him, wouldn't he become a laughingstock for no reason? Based on his character, this was something that he could not accept at all. Thinking of this, Duan Huali shook his head. So what if they have Lord Long's favor? Lord Long is only treating them well because he has taken a fancy to their strength. However, our current strength is much stronger than theirs. I believe that in Lord Long's heart, our position is not lower than theirs. Seeing that Duan Huali was still unwilling to give up, Peng Kai could not help but frown. Sigh, I feel that it's only for the sake of two women. It's really not worth taking such a risk. You intend to give up just like that? The gloominess in Duan Huali's eyes grew even more intense. If Peng Kairui were to withdraw just like that, then he would be left alone, and this matter would be much more troublesome to deal with. Peng Kairui nodded. I still have to rely on Lord Long if I want to obtain a contracted beast. If I offend him, then I won't have any more hope. You can think of it from another perspective, Duan Huali said slowly. He did not intend to give up just like that. At the very least, he had to teach Di Beichen a lesson. What do you mean? Since Master Long appreciates the four of them very much, if Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying become our people, then our relationship with Master Long can also be pulled closer. You haven't been able to get a contract beast yet, and you don't know how long you'll have to wait. Maybe you'll be able to use this opportunity to succeed. Duan Huali's deep and dark eyes flashed. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were powerful, as long as they died, Master Long would not speak up for them. Regarding this point, he could not be any clearer. Peng Kairui, who had already decided to give up, could not help but be stunned when he heard these words. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that Duan Huali's words were very reasonable. Usually, Long Yanwei would stay in his residence. It could be said that it was very difficult to get close to him. Apart from the cultivators who had achieved good results in the inner hall who could obtain a contracted beast, it could be said that it was very difficult for other cultivators to obtain one. Chapter 3586. Peng Kairui's eyes gradually brightened. He felt that Duan Huali's words were not without reason. As long as there was an opportunity to get closer to Master Long, he might be able to get a contract beast that was suitable for him. But once Master Long finds out that it was us who did this, then things will be troublesome. Peng Kairui's tightly knitted brows still did not loosen. It would be good if this matter succeeded, but if it failed, even he felt that the consequences were incomparably troublesome. Hearing Peng Kairui's words, Duan Huali knew that Peng Kairui was tempted and immediately felt relieved. So we have to think about this matter in the long run. Duan Huali muttered. As long as we do this flawlessly, then no one will be able to link this matter to us. Even so, basically no one in the outer palace dares to make a move against them. If we ask the inner palace disciples to do it, I'm afraid that it won't be too reliable. Besides, there's no chance at all. Peng Kairui's expression was complicated, no matter how he thought about it. He felt that the implementation of this matter was too complicated. There was no way to find a place to start. Just because they don't dare to make a move in the outer palace doesn't mean that they won't dare to make a move in the outer palace's training grounds. We don't need to make it too obvious. We just need to use the outer palace's training environment to quietly get rid of Di Beichun and Wenziren. The malicious light in Duan Huali's eyes became more and more intense. He decided to change his previous method and use another method. As long as we get rid of the two of them? Peng Kai was a little confused, but he quickly reacted. You're saying that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others will come to us on their own? That's right. Duan Huali nodded. The reason why Bailey Hongzhuang likes Di Beichun is undoubtedly because of his looks. As long as Di Beichun dies, we can send some people to harass them. When that time comes, as long as we appear, the effect will naturally be there. The outer palace disciples only show their admiration for them. This can't be considered as looking for trouble. Even Master Long can't say anything. What do you think? Peng Kai, who originally felt that the matter was extremely troublesome, could not help but light up after hearing Duan Huali's words. He immediately clapped his hands and said, That's right. In that case, there won't be any problems. If you seize this opportunity, it will be beneficial to you as well. Duan Huali smiled. Then we'll discuss how exactly to deploy this matter. Immediately, the two of them gathered together to carefully think of a solution. They believed that as long as they made a good deployment, they would definitely be able to solve this problem perfectly. At that time, the two of them would have a bountiful harvest. Was. The next day, Peng Kairui went to look for Xue Changdong again. Xue Changdong's face suddenly turned bitter. He was about to reject Peng Kairui, but after carefully listening to Peng Kairui's idea, he was not in a hurry to reject immediately. I can add 20% on top of the benefits that I originally proposed. Think about it carefully. This is not too difficult to accomplish. Peng Kairui slowly said. This time, he had put in a lot of capital. After all, once it was successful, it would be double the gains. Chapter 3587. If you're not willing to accept it, I can find someone else. I'm sure there will be quite a few people who are willing to accept it. Peng Kairui's expression was indifferent. He believed that most cultivators would not reject his offer. Moreover, he was not directly offending Master Long. All he needed to do now was to quietly kill two people and use some tricks to achieve his goal. Seeing this, Xue Changdong thought for a moment before gritting his teeth and nodding. All right, Senior Brother Peng, don't worry. I'll definitely complete this task well. Hearing Xue Changdong's reply, Peng Kairui looked satisfied. That's good. However, Senior Brother Peng, I'll have to wait until they've gone to the training grounds before I think of a way to do it. Furthermore, if I want to do it in a natural manner, I'm afraid that I'll need some time. I'll give you enough time. Peng Kairui spoke slowly as if he had already expected all of this. As long as you can complete this task beautifully, it doesn't matter if you spend some time. There's no need to rush. Xue Changdong sighed in relief. I'm relieved to hear Senior Brother Peng's words. Don't worry, I'll definitely complete this task well. I believe in you. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three walked out of the house and headed towards the teleportation formation. Today, we'll be able to see what the training grounds of the Outer Palace disciples look like. A look of interest surfaced on Shangguan Yingying's face. She was always curious about new things. Ziren glanced at Shangguan Yingying. His gaze was gentle and affectionate. After seeing the training grounds of the Inner Palace disciples, I'm sure the training grounds of the Outer Palace disciples won't be able to shock us much. I only hope to raise my strength as soon as possible so that I can return to the demonic tower and explore it. Ziren had always been interested in the demonic tower. After all, The more he understood the power of the blood aura, the more interested he was in the inheritance of the demonic tower. If he could obtain the inheritance of the demonic tower, it would greatly increase his strength. After all, it's a new place. With so many cultivators from the outer palace training there, it shouldn't be bad, Shangwan Yingying said with a faint smile. Speaking of the magic refining pagoda, we haven't returned to the magic refining pagoda since we participated in the auction. I'm afraid Steward Qin doesn't even know where we went. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Originally, they planned to go back after attending the auction in Penglai Island, but they didn't expect that they would be unexpectedly recruited by Lord Long to Penglai Island. After that, they no longer had any contact with the demon refining tower. In fact, after Steward Qin returned to the magic refining pagoda, he had been waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to return. After all, he had failed to successfully bid for the medicinal herbs. No matter what, he had to give Bailey Hongzhuang and the others an explanation. At the same time, he was also thinking of other ways to obtain a new prescription from Bailey Hongzhuang. The effect of the healing medicine was simply too good. What was even more unbelievable was that it actually had a certain effect on wounds caused by the power of darkness. Ever since he discovered this effect, the healing medicine had fallen into a situation where the supply could not meet the demand. Even if he raised the price by a lot, the situation where the supply could not meet the demand did not change at all. Now, just by relying on this healing medicine, the income of the demonic tower was an extremely shocking figure. Chapter 3588. If this healing medicine was Bailey Hongzhuang's trump card, it would be fine, but Steward Qin knew very well that this healing medicine was nothing to Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang would not have handed over the prescription so easily. Not only that, from Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, he could clearly see that the former definitely had a lot of prescriptions, and there were probably a lot of prescriptions that were even more effective than this healing medicine. If he could obtain the prescriptions that Bailey Hongzhuang had, the influence of the demon refining pagoda on the Penglai Island would definitely rise further. The current status of the demon refining pagoda was already very high, and the 100 Flowers Gate was also famous for their medical skills. Right now, the reputation of the demon refining pagoda was already very famous because of this healing medicine. If they could continue to develop like this, it would definitely be very shocking. However, ever since the auction, he had not seen Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three return. This immediately made him dumbfounded. He had no idea where Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had gone. Countless guesses flashed through Steward Qin's mind. Could it be that they had been recruited by the 100 Flowers Gate? Just thinking about this possibility made Steward Qin feel extremely depressed. If that was really the case, then it would be impossible for him to complete his wishful thinking. Thus, during this period of time, Steward Qin had always been in a restless state of mind. However, he had waited for a long time and did not hear any news from the 100 Flowers Gate. He could not help but feel relieved. After all, if Bailey Hongzhuang was successfully recruited by the 100 Flowers Gate, then with her strength, she would definitely be able to show her prowess in the 100 Flowers Gate in a short period of time, and her reputation would also spread. Since he hadn't heard any news for so long, then he probably hadn't been recruited by the 100 Flowers Gate. Then where had he gone? In my opinion, I'm afraid that Steward Qin will be very anxious if he doesn't see us go back. After all, he is very interested in Hongzhuang's prescription. Shangwan Yingying chuckled. Di Baichen raised his eyebrows and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile that was not a smile. That's natural. How powerful is my wife? Steward Qin is naturally unwilling to let her leave. Baichen, do you think everyone thinks that I'm as good as you? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. I'm telling the truth. You can ask them if you don't believe me, Deep Baichen said calmly, as if he was proud of his wife. When Zyra nodded, that's true. Hongzhuang, I'm not praising you, but you're really amazing. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were slowly walking towards the teleportation array, Shui Changdong noticed their movements and immediately went to gather his teammates. Since he had already promised Peng Karue, he had to do it properly. Moreover, he definitely couldn't give up on such a rich profit. With those things, he would have more confidence in becoming an inner hall disciple. On one hand, he also couldn't understand why Peng Karue would spend so much money. Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed beautiful and had an incomparable attraction to men. However, the reward he gave was a little too much. Chapter 3589. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three arrived at the teleportation array again, they no longer had to worry about going to the wrong teleportation array. The four of them glanced around. There were still some outer palace disciples around them who were obviously preparing to head to the training grounds. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, the crowd's gaze could not help but stop on them for a moment before shifting away unnaturally. Now, the outer palace disciples' feelings towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were very complicated. When they first found out that they had obtained contracted beasts, most of them were unconvinced. However, when the four of them proved everything with their strength, everyone could not help but be shocked. The cultivators whose cultivation had declined naturally hated them. The other cultivators could only secretly envy them. However, after they understood how much Master Long cared for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, their thoughts gradually changed. With such a backer, it meant that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would definitely have a meteoric rise in Penglai Palace in the future. If they could build a relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, it would undoubtedly be excellent. However, in the current situation, how to build a relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three was also a problem. Moreover, if their friend's strength declined due to poison, it would be difficult for them to build a relationship with them. This would be troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not feel the entanglement of the people around them. In any case, they had already accepted the fact that they had no friends in the outer palace. Originally, they thought that at least Li Shunkai was not an enemy. They did not expect that it was precisely because of this thought that it would harm them even more. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three walked out of the teleportation array, a cool breeze blew past, bringing with it a faint salty and fishy smell. Feeling this familiar sea breeze, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could not help but look at each other. It seemed that the outer palace disciples' training ground was indeed an island. It seems that we will have to continue hunting monsters in the ocean. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Back then, we were the worst at fighting on the sea. I didn't expect that this shortcoming would no longer exist. Yeah, I should be the one who changed the most. Xiren chuckled. In the past, he didn't even know how to swim. Now, he simply couldn't adapt. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to the oceanic world in Bailey Hongzhuang's Chaos Ring. Otherwise, it would have been very troublesome for them to come to this island to train. This island seems to be very safe. There's no smell of blood nearby. It seems that the hunting ground is not here, Di Beichun said slowly as he looked around. His deep and charming eyes were filled with wisdom. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. We'll just follow behind the other cultivators. When the time comes, we'll know what they're doing. The four of them looked at each other. Now, they had given up on asking other cultivators. It would be awkward if they were given the cold shoulder. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. In any case, this was not a problem. Fortunately, there were also some cultivators who had just arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four maintained a certain distance from the other party, following behind them as they slowly walked forward. As they walked forward, the salty smell and the cool breeze became stronger. At the same time, they gradually saw the dark blue sea in front of them. However, the sea here was slightly different from what they had imagined. Chapter 3590. Ordinary seawater was clear and blue. At a glance, it gave people a vast and comfortable feeling. However, the seawater in the line of sight of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gave them an inexplicable sense of oppression. This was because the seawater only appeared blue within a certain range. The rest of the seawater was a deep black. This kind of black was like ink revealing a bit of oppression. Even just looking at it gave people a feeling of breathlessness. However, this black color was quite far from where Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were standing. They could only see the black color from a distance, but they did not understand why. Why is the seawater in the distance black? It looks so strange. Shangguan Yingying's clear and bright eyes flashed with a trace of puzzlement. The seawater is all together. Why does the color become different? Logically speaking, if the seawater is black, then everything should be black. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She and Di Beichun looked at each other. This situation was indeed a bit strange. The seawater should be blue. I have never heard of black seawater. This is indeed a bit strange. Di Beichun's voice was slightly heavy. Even though he had just arrived at this place, he already felt that this place was very unusual. Why is the Penglai Palace's training ground so strange? That black color shouldn't be the power of darkness, right? When Zirin secretly clicked his tongue. Now, just looking at the black color, he could not help but think of the skeleton army that appeared at night. His impression of the power of darkness was too deep. Moreover, it was difficult for people not to think of the power of darkness in this large black color. It shouldn't be. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. The power of darkness itself is a secret that has been kept by the major forces. Ordinary practitioners can't come into contact with it at all. Therefore, it is absolutely impossible for the disciples of the Outer Palace to come into contact with the power of darkness. There should be another reason for this black color. That's true. Zirin regained some of his senses. That black sea looks a bit strange. There's no hurry. We'll be here for a while anyway. We'll figure it out eventually. Di Beichun's expression was indifferent. Since they were already here, they might as well take things as they came. As long as they spent some time, they would figure everything out sooner or later. Speaking of which, it's because we're not popular outside. If we could make a few friends, then the situation wouldn't be so bad. We can only rely on ourselves to figure things out. When Zirin shook his head and sighed, he was usually very popular. He did not expect that he would become like this when he came to the outer hall of Penglai Palace. Even he sometimes felt a little unbelievable. Haha, just accept your fate. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but chuckle. It's better to explore on your own than to be deceived by others. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were not in a hurry to take action. Instead, they stayed at the edge of the island and observed how the surrounding cultivators would act. Before figuring out the specific situation, it was not a wise move for them to act rashly. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others set off, Xue Changdong came to the training ground with his teammates. Not long after, they saw the figures of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. They're there. Chapter 3591. Brother Xue, why are they standing there without moving? Fang Tianyi looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three who were standing in front of him in confusion. There was nothing on this island at all, and the training was not here. Xue Changdong also had some doubts in his heart, but after thinking about it carefully, he understood. It must be their first time coming to the training ground. They have no understanding of the situation here, so they're trying to understand the situation now. Then why don't they find someone to ask? They came here to train without knowing anything about the training ground. Isn't this a bit too exaggerated? Fang Tianyi found it hard to believe. This training ground was not an ordinary place. If they had no understanding of it and just relied on themselves to explore, the danger would be much greater. Xue Changdong chuckled. Don't you think about their popularity in the Outer Palace? Previously, Li Shunkai tricked them into going to the training ground of the Inner Palace disciples. If it weren't for their good fortune, they would have become corpses by now. Once bitten, twice shy. If you were in their shoes, would you continue to ask people after suffering such a loss? Brother Xue is right. The four of them have made so many enemies in the Outer Palace. In my opinion, I'm afraid they themselves can't remember all of those enemies. After all, there are more than 100 people. It's not easy to remember all of their faces. If I were in their shoes, I wouldn't ask people to ask. If I'm unlucky and ask my enemies, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? I suddenly sympathize with them a little. Feng Tianyi couldn't help but sigh. In this dangerous training ground, it was a lot of trouble to rely on oneself to explore. Why are you thinking so much? We just need to complete the task and get the rewards. Shui Changdong looked indifferent. He was not in a mood to sympathize with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. With Master Long's protection, the four of them did not have to worry about their development in the Penglai Palace. Everyone knew in their hearts that they would inevitably become inner palace disciples in the future. On the contrary, they still needed to work hard to join the inner palace. Therefore, they were not qualified to sympathize with them. Then what should we do now? They stay here and don't move. Do we stay here too? Feng Tianyi could not help but ask. According to my judgment, it's impossible for them to take action today. If we stay here, it will only arouse their suspicion. It's better to go train first and dispel their doubts. After that, we can take the opportunity to think of a way to take action. Shui Changdong's eyes flashed with a wise light. He was very clear that once this matter was done, it must be done 100%, so he did not need to be in a hurry. He believed that he would find the right time. Hearing Shui Changdong's words, the cultivators in the team looked at each other and then nodded one after another. Brother Shui, you're really far-sighted. This is the safest way. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three stayed at the seaside for a while, and then simply sat down on the ground. Their eyes constantly fell on the cultivators who were leaving. Judging from the others' actions, they could determine the way to gain experience here. Gradually, they began to understand the situation. Chapter 3592. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. There are quite a few islands in front of us. From what I can see, these people seem to be heading towards all the islands. They have been sitting here for a whole day, enduring the attention of the crowd. However, there were quite a few teams that came here during this period of time. Almost none of the teams stayed on the island they were on. Hence, they seemed to be in a league of their own. From the direction these teams were heading, she could see that they were all heading towards different islands and not the same place. In my opinion, we should be able to go to any island, right? Xiren raised his eyebrows. Everyone is heading in different directions. We can't determine the pattern. Why don't we just go to any island? We'll know when we get there. At worst, we'll just have to deal with monsters. We've already come to the training grounds of the Inner Palace disciples. Why should we be afraid of this place? Shangguan Yingying looked indifferent. To her, it didn't matter which island they went to. It was just to hunt monsters. Don't be impatient. Let's observe for a while. If there's not much difference between the islands, we'll set off immediately, Di Beichen said. After careful observation by Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, the four of them vaguely noticed the subtle differences between the islands. According to my judgment, the islands on the left should be relatively less dangerous. The monsters near the islands on the right should be stronger. The next day, after the sky cleared up, Di Beichen slowly stood up and faced the golden sun. The bright light sprinkled on his body, adding a trace of nobility to his already heroic figure. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. Her thoughts were the same as Di Beichen's. She realized that the cultivators heading to the islands on the left were generally weaker than the ones on the right. Although they were all outer palace disciples, the difference in strength between the cultivators was not small. Their cultivation of the 5th level of the Purple Realm was definitely the basic cultivation in the outer palace. Almost all the cultivators here were stronger than them. Most of the outer palace disciples were between the 5th level of the Purple Realm and the 8th level of the Purple Realm. After some observation, she discovered that most of the cultivators heading to the right island were at least at the 7th or 8th level of the Purple Realm. What should we do now? Shangguan Yingying looked at Di Beichen. Shall we head to the island on the left? Di Beichen thought for a while and nodded. Let's go there and learn about it first. Then we'll see which island is more suitable for us to train on. Their main purpose for coming here was not to earn points, but to better hone their abilities and further improve their cultivation. Therefore, if the strength of the demonic beast was of no use to them, then there was no use for them to stay here. They had to find some demonic beast that could challenge them in order to be effective. Then let's go. When Xiren also stood up, after being blown by the sea breeze for so long, I also want to move around. Hearing this, the four of them looked at each other and smiled. Then they sat on the boat and slowly approached the island on the left. As they got closer and closer to the island, they realized that the smell of blood in the air was getting thicker and the oppressive feeling was getting heavier. Chapter 3593. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three finally landed successfully and walked onto the island. The number of cultivators on the island was undoubtedly much more than the island they were on previously. When they saw that a new team had appeared, some of them quietly glanced at them. However, when they saw that it was Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, their expressions changed slightly. They did not expect to see them here. Di Beichen and the others have actually come here too. Looks like we'll be seeing them often on this training grounds in the future. Be careful in the future. Master Long has taken such good care of them. It won't do us any good to offend them. I didn't see the great battle that day. From what I've heard from you guys, it sounds so incredible. I really want to know how strong these guys are to be able to make so many people fear them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three scanned their surroundings. They had long gotten used to such stares. As long as no one deliberately came to cause trouble, it was fine. It looks like Master Long's attitude the last time really helped us a lot. If it was before, I'm afraid that we would have been attacked by a group. Xiren noticed the gazes around them. Those unscrupulous gazes fell upon them. He could vaguely sense some hostility and unwillingness. It seemed that among these teams, there were cultivators who had fallen in power because of them. Indeed, Di Beichen's lips curled into a devilish arc. As long as these guys don't have the guts to sell to us, we don't have to worry about anything. Xiaohei jumped onto Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. It's a good thing that these guys still have some self-awareness. Otherwise, I'm afraid that we wouldn't have come here to hunt for monstrous beasts, but to hunt for cultivators. Hunt for cultivators. When Xiaohei said this, everyone was a little speechless. However, when they thought about it carefully, what she said did make some sense. Standing here, we seem to be closer to the black seawater. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the black seawater not far away. She had a feeling that the black seawater was not normal. There should be some special reason for it. The strangest thing was that in the sea, if it was black, it should be a collective black. How could there be such a clear dividing line? No matter how one looked at it, this was simply impossible. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and the other two also looked in that direction. After taking a closer look, they realized that this was indeed the case. Look, these cultivators are also rowing their boats towards the black seawater. There aren't any demonic beasts on this island. I think we'll still have to fight on the surface of the sea. Xiren pointed to the front and said slowly. Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. Let's take a boat and see what's going on. The four of them looked at each other and nodded in unison. All right. After boarding the small boat, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others headed towards the Black Sea. Not far from them, there were other boats heading towards the same destination. After a while, the sounds of battle traveled into everyone's ears. In their line of sight, the cultivators from the outer palace had already clashed with the demonic beasts at the bottom of the sea. Energy waves continued to spread, stirring up waves on the surface of the water. Energy poured out in torrents and water splashed everywhere. The scene was extremely terrifying. Chapter 3594. Perhaps that's the dividing line of the battle. Xiren pondered and said, but it feels a little strange. Isn't it a little too neat? Let's go over and take a look. Di Beichen said. Xiren increased the speed of the boat and finally arrived at the battlefield not long after. However, when they got closer to the battlefield, they could clearly see the black seawater in the distance. When they saw it, the expressions of the four people froze for a moment. Then, a look of disbelief quickly climbed onto their faces. This is too scary. Shangguan Yingying stretched out her finger and pointed at the seawater in front of her. She was so shocked that she almost couldn't speak. This was simply too shocking. How can this be? Could it be that all the black seawater in the back is the same? Zyron's voice rose uncontrollably. The shock that the scene brought to him was no different from when he first saw the skeleton army. If that's the case, then it's too scary. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Her clear and bright eyes rippled with a look of disbelief. Even though she had already felt that the black seawater was very strange, the real result was still beyond her expectations. This was because the black seawater was actually densely packed with demonic beasts. However, because there were simply too many demonic beasts and they were densely packed together, the seawater looked black from afar. At a glance, there was only endless darkness in the distance. Didn't this mean that it was filled with demonic beasts? When they thought of this possibility, even Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. This number of demonic beasts was simply too terrifying. It seems that we've underestimated the danger of the Outer Palace Disciples' training grounds. Deep Beichen's eyes darkened. With such a large number, even if the demonic beasts weren't strong enough, it would be extremely troublesome to deal with them. Moreover, these demonic beasts were probably not simple. Not only that, but there were so many demonic beasts here. Coupled with the demonic beasts' terrifying reproductive ability, just thinking about it made one's scalp tingle. This was a really tricky problem. I feel that just dealing with these demonic beasts should be enough to tire a person to death, right? Shangguan Yingying's lips twitched slightly. This was completely a pile of demonic beasts. Back then, she had thought that it was very difficult to be besieged by demonic beasts in the sea world and the Chaos Ring. However, compared to that, the situation before her eyes was clearly more terrifying. Looks like we're going to be exhausted to death. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands, her cherry blossom-colored lips curling into a wry smile. Then there's nothing we can do. Deep Beichun chuckled softly. I've long guessed that suffering is unavoidable in the training grounds. It's just that it's more like hard labor now. I don't care. Anyway, there's only one thing to do, kill. Zyron's expression was indifferent. These demonic beasts would only be a disaster if they were left alive. In the next moment, the four of them looked at each other, and then a smile of understanding appeared on their faces. Chapter 3595. It was precisely because of this that the demonic beasts under the sea were all over this line. Without this layer of restriction, the islands behind them would have been completely surrounded by these demonic beasts. If I'm not wrong, these restrictions should be moving forward step by step as the demonic beasts are cleared. The Outer Palace Disciples' training would also help to clear out these demonic beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke slowly. With this layer of restriction, at least they did not have to worry about a sudden attack from the demonic beasts behind them. The danger had undoubtedly decreased by a lot. That should be the case. When Zyra nodded, at least there's still a normal area of the sea, which ensures the safety of the rear. This situation is much better than what we've encountered in the training grounds of the Inner Palace Disciples. Previously, they had always thought that the teleportation formation's vicinity was very safe. They did not expect that not only was it not safe, but they had also fallen into an even more dangerous situation and had almost lost their lives. In comparison, at least the rear here was much safer. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were conversing, the demonic beasts under the sea had already set them as their targets and could not wait to attack them. Not only that, these demonic beasts seemed to be very smart as they slyly launched a sneak attack. While the four of them were still analyzing the surrounding situation, these demonic beasts had already approached their ship and suddenly attacked from under the water. Splash! Water splashed in all directions, blurring everyone's eyes. These demonic beasts were divided into two groups. One group surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, while the other group began to attack their ship with the intention of overturning it. Most cultivators were not very good at fighting underwater. Once they lost their ship, the cultivators would be at a disadvantage when facing the demonic beasts under the sea. When the surrounding cultivators saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three approaching without any scruples, they could not help but feel a little amused. Didn't they say that they were very powerful? Why do I feel that they don't have brains at all? Once the ship capsizes, they will be surrounded by the demonic beasts. It won't be so easy for them to come back after that. Everyone shook their heads. Although the demonic beasts here were not extremely powerful, once they were surrounded, they would fall into an endless battle, regardless of their level of cultivation. As long as they were in such a situation, they would certainly end up in an extremely miserable state. Losing their lives was a common occurrence. However, just as many cultivators were lamenting over Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's lack of brains, the next scene caused their mockery to come to an abrupt end. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three seemed to have predicted this, and they were familiar with the sea demonic beast's sudden attack. Bang, bang, bang. Those demonic beasts that had launched a sneak attack were all killed in an instant. Not only that, when the silver boat continued to sway, when Xiren directly put the boat away, and Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stood on the sea very indifferently. Chapter 3596. The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but widen their eyes and look at each other. Some were shocked, and some were speechless. According to the information they gathered, weren't Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three newcomers who had just arrived at Penglai Island not long ago? Even if their combat ability on land was very strong, logically speaking, their combat experience on the sea was definitely not rich enough. However, the scene in front of them, who could tell them if their eyes were playing tricks on them? How exactly did they do it? If one were to use their elemental energy to wrap their feet and stand on the surface of the sea, that was something that everyone could do. However, not many cultivators dared to do so because there were simply too many demonic beasts below. As long as they were careless and those monsters destroyed the circulation of primary energy under their feet, they would directly fall into the sea. If such a situation suddenly occurred during a fight, it would be fatal. Were Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three putting on a show? Almost immediately, this thought appeared in everyone's mind. However, after seeing the relaxed faces of the four, they couldn't help but dismiss this thought because they were too confident. It didn't seem like they were forcing themselves at all. Want to sneak attack us with this little ability? What a joke. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. They had already noticed the movements of the monsters, so they reacted immediately. One must know that when they were in the Chaos Ring, they were often sneak attacked by monsters. Moreover, the monsters there were much stronger than the monsters here. Thinking back to the time when they were in the oceanic world, they were also flustered by the sneak attacks of these monster beasts, repeatedly falling into danger, leaving countless large and small scars on their bodies. However, it was precisely because of this abnormal abuse that their ability to fight on the sea continued to strengthen. Not only that, even the ability to walk on the sea surface as if it was flat ground was also trained under a helpless situation. Because there were too many monsters besieging them, the ship couldn't be stabilized at all. When they were dealing with the monsters, it was difficult for them to divide their attention to stabilize the ship. Gradually, everyone practiced the ability to stand on the sea surface and fight with the monsters directly. However, the process could be said to be very tragic. The strength of these monsters is not strong. They're not a threat to us. After dealing with a wave of monsters, Xiren couldn't help but look at Deep Bachin next to him. The main purpose of their trip this time was to experience and improve their own cultivation, not to help clear the obstacles. Listening to Xiren's words, Di Beichen also understood what he meant and immediately nodded. Indeed, this area seems to be filled with the same kind of monsters. Maybe we can directly go to other islands. Only if the monsters were strong enough would it be useful for them to improve. Otherwise, they wouldn't gain any benefits from this kind of battle. The most important thing was that Di Beichen had found that he had a tendency to break through again. Since his physique had changed, he found that his cultivation speed was completely different from the past. Chapter 3597. After Di Beichen and Wen Xiren made their decision, they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang. Both of them nodded in agreement. If that's the case, let's go to the next island directly. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. According to their judgment, the strength of the monsters near these islands increased step by step. Therefore, they could also use this method to find a suitable place for them to train. There was no need to waste time in such a place that was of no help at all. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three immediately changed their direction and prepared to leave. However, just as they were about to leave, a voice suddenly entered their ears. This should be your first time here to train. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but be stunned. They even suspected that they had misheard and that the other party might not be talking to them at all. After all, with their popularity in the Outer Palace, they really did not expect anyone to interact with them. However, in the end, the four of them confirmed that the other party was indeed talking to them because the other party's gaze fell on them. That's right. Di Beichen nodded, and his gaze fell on the person who spoke. Speaking of which, the feeling that this cultivator gave them was also very different. The man was wearing the uniform of the Penglai Palace's Outer Palace disciple. He was not more than 30 years old and looked particularly young among the group of disciples. His ink-black hair was loose and looked a little messy. However, it still could not hide his outstanding appearance. Not only that, his clothes were also loose and not as neat as the others. However, it was this somewhat sloppy appearance that gave people a completely different feeling. The strangest thing was that the other cultivators were all gathered together in groups. Only this cultivator stood alone on the ship. Under such circumstances, the lone cultivator seemed to be more special than them. In this training ground, you can't go anywhere you want to train. If you want to go to the next island, you have to kill 5,000 demonic beasts here. Otherwise, even if you go there, you will be stopped by the restrictions. The young man slowly said. Hearing the other party's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could not help but look at each other in astonishment. They did not know that this training ground actually had such a rule. Is what you said true? Shangguan Yingying frowned. Once bitten, twice shy. She had already been cheated once. This time, she didn't want to be cheated again. After all, they didn't know the other party at all. It was strange that the other party would be so kind as to warn them. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. The young man glanced at Shangguan Yingying indifferently. He was too lazy to explain anything. Then he turned around and went to hunt the monsters, as if he didn't want to say anything more. Seeing the man leave directly after warning them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were a little stunned. This, the other party's temperament, seemed to be very special. Hey, Shangguan Yingying stomped her feet. Who is this guy? Didn't I just ask him question? Is there a need for such an attitude? Chapter 3598. Bailey Hongzhuang was also looking at the figure fighting the demonic beast alone. From that figure, she could faintly feel that this was a person with a story. This guy's popularity can't be worse than ours, right? He's actually alone. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. She always felt that this guy was strange. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were secretly puzzled, some of the surrounding discussions entered their ears. From this, they had a better understanding of this man. This A.O. Lingxiao's temper is really strange. Isn't he usually arrogant and haughty? No matter who spoke to him, he would ignore them. Now, he actually took the initiative to talk to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Are you stupid? You still don't understand? Isn't A.O. Lingxiao trying to worm his way into being friends with them? Anyway, he's already alone. If he wants to worm his way into being friends with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he doesn't have to worry about offending other cultivators. Who doesn't know that if he gets along well with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it would be extremely helpful for his future development? You're right. This A.O. Lingxiao seems to only be interested in talking to cultivators with high statuses. He doesn't even spare a glance for the others. A.O. Lingxiao. Di Beichen slowly muttered the man's name. This name is very domineering. It matches his wanton and unrestrained image very well. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly smiled. Although according to everyone's discussion, this Ao Lingxiao was a person who climbed up the social ladder. However, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that this man was definitely not such a person. This was because she saw a very arrogant look in this man's eyes. Any cultivator with this kind of arrogance would not be such a flattering person. Moreover, if he was really such a person, he wouldn't be alone now. Most importantly, she had a faint feeling that this man's strength was very strong. This Ao Lingxiao is probably not simple. Di Beichen's deep eyes flashed with a wisp of wisdom as he said in a low voice, "He's not weak." He had seen many disciples in the outer hall, but none of them had left a deep impression on him. However, this Ao Ling Xiao gave him a very special feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others glanced at each other. They all had the same thought. It was because Ao Ling Xiao was able to face so many demonic beasts alone without any fear. Clearly, he had no problem dealing with these demonic beasts. Not only that, but they could also feel that this was not his true strength and that he was hiding it a little. Because only those who were much stronger than these demonic beasts could be so indifferent. Moreover, Ao Lingxiao was much younger than the other cultivators. From this, they were able to determine Ao Ling Xiao's uniqueness. In addition to his personality, he was indeed a special person. In my opinion, this guy's popularity is probably worse than ours. I haven't heard anyone say anything good about him until now. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. She felt that it was funny. She didn't know if this was the pot calling the kettle black. We're not much better than him. Is this a kind of consolation for us? Xiren couldn't help but chuckle. He inexplicably had a better impression of Ao Lingxiao. Chapter 35-99. That's the only way now. When Xiren nodded, 5,000 demonic beasts. I'm afraid it'll take some time to kill them. Anyway, there's so many demonic beasts here, we don't need to look for them at all. We just need to do it directly. Shangguan Yingying looked indifferent. If each person has 5,000 demonic beasts, the four of us will have to kill 20,000 demonic beasts. In this way, the demonic beasts in front of us will also be cleared out, right? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. 20,000 demonic beasts is indeed a lot, but the demonic beasts here are extremely dense. Plus, there are demonic beasts constantly approaching from behind. Unless we clear out the area in front in a short period of time, it will be filled up very quickly if we take it slow. It was precisely because of this that even though there were so many cultivators gathered here in the outer hall, the clearing speed was still very slow, and it was not easy to make the restriction move forward a little. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying's lips suddenly curled into a smile. Since that's the case, why don't we just have a competition to see who can kill 5,000 demonic beasts first? What do you think? As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but look at each other, and then a smile appeared on their faces. Okay, let's have a competition. Otherwise, just hunting demonic beasts like this is indeed a little boring. When Xiren looked at Di Beichen, "Beichen, if I win, you have to personally admit that I'm more handsome than you." Do you think there's any meaning in saying that? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. The meaning could not be more obvious. As long as one had a discerning eye, one would be able to tell the difference in appearance. This kind of self-deception was really meaningless. As long as I think it's meaningful. When Xiren did not care, "I just want you to say it yourself. Then I'll feel happy." Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. "Then I'm afraid you don't have any chance. Are you looking down on me?" "I didn't say that." Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other. They hadn't even started yet, but Xiren and Di Beichen had already decided on the stakes. "Come on, let's start now." When Xiren's eyes flashed with a strong fighting spirit. "Beichen is getting more and more arrogant recently. I have no choice but to show my true strength. Let's wait and see." Di Beichen chuckled and took the lead to step forward, approaching the demonic beasts. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two did not stay any longer. The so-called competition was just to add some fun. They really did not want to waste any more time here. The sooner they dealt with these demonic beasts, the sooner they could go to an island that was more suitable for them. However, in the eyes of the other cultivators, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were like wolves in a flock of sheep, sweeping away all obstacles in their way as they fought with the demonic beasts at the bottom of the sea. To everyone, they were usually surrounded by the demonic beasts at the bottom of the sea and needed to be careful when dealing with them. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were not in a defensive position at all, but had directly charged into the encirclement. The encirclement of these demonic beasts was a very difficult thing to deal with in everyone's eyes. But to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was as if it was not a problem at all. They were completely ignoring it. Chapter 3600. Di Beichen was also holding the flowing light sword in his hand. Vigorous Yuan Li was constantly emerging. His figure moved quickly like a ghost. Wherever he passed, all the monsters fell. Xiren and Shangwan Yingying were not slow either. Each of the four people had their own unique fighting style. The only thing they had in common was that they killed the monsters at an extremely fast speed. Everyone could only hear the sound of monsters falling into the water. The dark red color of blood spread in the sea, and the smell of blood in the air could not help but become stronger. In fact, around Bailey Hongzhuang's group, many teams were also desperately hunting monsters. However, the four of them were the most eye-catching, because no matter whether it was movement or efficiency, other teams could not compare to them. Even the blood in the sea was the thickest in their area. In the process of hunting monsters, Bailey Hongzhuang's group did not forget to collect the gallbladder. The gallbladder was of great use to cultivators, not to mention that they could also use the gallbladder to exchange points for the heaven and earth treasures they needed for their own cultivation. Although they had not seen the resource warehouse of Penglai Palace, just by thinking about the reputation of Penglai Palace, they knew that the treasures in the resource warehouse were definitely not ordinary. As they encountered more and more strong people now, they were also eager to improve their strength again. I've already killed 200 monsters. Beichun, don't lose to me. Xiren killed happily and couldn't help but smile at Deep Beichun not far away. The strength of the demonic beasts in the Chaos Ring's oceanic world was simply too abnormal. Every time, they could only be abused. Even if their strength had increased, they would find that the demonic beasts that appeared later were even stronger. Therefore, they were always in a state of being suppressed. How could they be as happy as they were now? That's right, it was torture. No matter who it was, after being besieged by monsters stronger than them all day long, suddenly facing monsters weaker than them, they would feel a sense of torture. When Di Beichun heard Xiren's words, he couldn't help but turn around and chuckle. Unfortunately, I already have 230. When Xiren's face, which was originally full of smiles, couldn't help but change. When did you become so fast? He thought that his speed was already fast enough, but he didn't expect Di Beichun to be even faster than him, and by so much. When you don't know, Di Beichun chuckled, you'd better think about what you're going to say after you lose to me. That depends on the final result. When Xiren immediately increased the speed of his hands. His hunting speed, which was already very fast, was now even faster. Everyone could only see that the rate at which the demonic beast fell was extremely frightening. Among the four people, Bailey Hongzhuang's fighting posture was the most elegant. The gorgeous seven-colored yuan energy attracted everyone's attention like a rainbow. Her graceful figure was like a dance, which was very beautiful. However, the seven-colored light could be said to be the strength to harvest the demonic beast's lives. Although her posture was elegant, her speed was not inferior to others at all. Chapter 3601. She was used to being abused, so she couldn't help but feel oppressed. Now that she could hunt demonic beasts to her heart's content, she felt relaxed, as if she could expel all the oppressive feelings in her heart. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were hunting demonic beasts with all their might, Many of the surrounding cultivators had stopped what they were doing, and their gazes fell on them. Aren't they at the 5th level of the Purple Realm? Can anyone tell me why they look like they're killing chickens when they're also facing a 5th level Purple Realm demonic beast? What a bunch of freaks. Seeing them hunt demonic beasts like that, I've lost all my confidence. I finally understand why so many of you fell at their hands. Their ability to fight above their level is a little scary. Just the 5th level of the Purple Realm already has such combat strength. If they break through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm, then they'll be completely incomparable to the Purple Realm 6th level cultivators. For a moment, everyone looked at each other, only thinking that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were completely unreasonable existences. One had to know that there were many cultivators at the 6th level of the Purple Realm here. Even with their level of cultivation, they couldn't help but pay more attention when they were surrounded by demonic beasts. However, cultivators who were 1 level lower than them in terms of combat strength were so much stronger than them. This was a blatant slap in the face. Not far away, Ao Lingxiao also stopped what he was doing and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. His dark and deep eyes flashed with a touch of light, and then he quietly retracted his gaze. The corners of his mouth were almost invisible, but there was a trace of smile. Xiaohe and Xiao Bai were bored and stayed on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. They were usually abused, and now they finally had a chance to show off their might, but they could only watch from here. It was really unfair. Sigh, we can't even make a move at such a good time. It's so frustrating. Xiaohei's face was full of unwillingness. It was usually abused too much, and it also wanted to release it. Xiaobai shook its head. It can't be helped. Who told Master to have 3 contracted beasts? If we join in, Master will definitely win. Although everyone had contracted beasts now, they still had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. Actually, you and White Lion don't have to do anything. I only need to do it. In your dreams. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 continued to hunt the demonic beasts, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, an empty space appeared in front of the 4 of them. A vacuum zone. Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes. This was a situation that would never happen on a normal day. Only by hunting demonic beasts at an extremely fast speed and killing a large number of demonic beasts in a short period of time could one achieve this step. However, how fast were the demonic beasts behind them advancing? It was extremely difficult to do so, which was why it was so difficult to advance through the restriction. However, there were only 4 of them, yet they were able to do this. Wasn't this a little too terrifying? Most importantly, everyone discovered that the demonic beasts at the bottom of the sea seemed to be afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. They actually had a faint feeling of wanting to retreat. What kind of joke was this? Chapter 3602. These monsters are pretty smart. They know that they're no match for us, so they won't run away. Shangguan Yingying looked at the empty space in front of her and couldn't help but laugh. But it's useless for them to run away. We have to kill enough monsters first. When Xiren laughed heartily, with a leap, he charged into the crowd of demonic beasts. Since these demonic beasts were avoiding them, they could only chase after them. As Xiren's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 also killed their way into the crowd. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 slaughtering the monsters, the surrounding cultivators were completely dumbfounded. The demonic beasts in front of them were all 5th level Purple Realm demonic beasts. How could Bailey Hongzhuang and the others kill them as if they were chickens? However, while the crowd was speechless, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 didn't notice at all. This was because they were already used to it. This level of hunting was nothing to them, because what they encountered on a daily basis was much more intense hunting. Not far away, Xue Changdong and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were happily killing monsters. The corners of their lips twitched slightly, and their expressions were complicated. Brother Xue, their strength is a little terrifying. Feng Tianyi was a little speechless. He had stayed on the first island for quite some time. It was his first time seeing such a level of hunting on their first hunt. Indeed, Shui Changdong's expression was a little awkward. Even though he already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's combat strength was extraordinary, this combat strength was indeed a little terrifying. Fong Tianyi frowned. Just based on their strength, it won't be easy for us to attack them. Although they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's strength wasn't weak, they thought that there were so many monsters here. In addition to their sneak attack, there was a high chance of success. However, after seeing their combat strength on the sea with their own eyes, the confidence in their hearts couldn't help but decrease a little. There'll be a chance. Shui Changdong glanced at the people around him who lacked confidence. We don't have to rush. I believe there will be a chance. Hearing that, the other cultivators nodded one after another. However, it could be seen from their expressions that they were not fully confident. Shui Changdong was a little speechless. He suddenly felt that the mission he had accepted was a little too tricky. But when he thought about the generous reward, he really couldn't give up. Let's leave this place first. Judging from their situation, I'm afraid that they will soon head to the next island. The strength of the demonic beasts here is not strong enough. Let's wait until the demonic beasts they're dealing with are strong enough to pressure them before we take action. That's all we can do now. When the surrounding cultivators saw Shui Changdong and the others appear here, their eyes were filled with shock. They did not expect Shui Changdong and the others to appear here. Noticing the gazes of the surrounding people, Shui Changdong and the rest looked at each other and quickly left. If they were to be suspected by Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, then all their efforts would be in vain. Time passed by slowly, and night gradually fell. Many cultivators chose to return. Chapter 36:03. Before, most of the cultivators were still busy hunting demonic beasts and only glanced at the battle of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4. Now that everyone had stopped to focus on the battle of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3, the feeling of speechlessness in their hearts became even more intense. Comparisons were odious. This was the first thought that came to everyone's mind. This was because the battle of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 did not weaken due to the influence of time. On the contrary, the more they killed, the more ferocious they became. In their line of sight, there was already a large empty area in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. They had already passed the area where the restriction was and directly moved forward by more than 100 meters. This was something that would be impossible on a normal day. This was because as long as they passed by all the monsters, they would be surrounded and attacked together. That kind of pressure was not something an ordinary team could withstand. However, not only did Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 move forward by more than 100 meters, but they were also in separate teams. They did not hunt monsters together. This was quite terrifying. This meant that at least each of them could move forward by more than 10 meters on their own. This kind of combat strength made everyone feel ashamed of their inferiority. Bailey Hongzhuang's rainbow primary energy was especially dazzling in the darkness. It was like a rainbow ribbon that lit up the sky. It was magnificent. However, while everyone was admiring this beauty, they were even more amazed by their strength. At least after seeing this scene, they did not have the confidence to fight against Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3, because it was a completely one-sided situation. This is too scary. The combat strength of these 4 definitely surpasses that of an ordinary 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator. I think it's reasonable for Master Long to think highly of them. In fact, this kind of combat strength is indeed a stock with great potential. Their future is limitless. I suddenly feel that Master Long told us to let go of this hatred for our own good. Otherwise, if we were to become enemies with this kind of people, we would be the ones who would not be able to eat or sleep well. They've been fighting for an entire day. Why don't they feel tired at all? It was unknown which cultivator sighed. Everyone's gaze suddenly changed, and then a trace of shock climbed onto their faces. It had been a long time since Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had appeared. Basically, all the cultivators were exhausted. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were still in high spirits. It was as if they did not feel tired at all. This kind of expression was definitely not feigned. This meant that the essence energy stored in his body was much stronger than theirs. That's not right. We're all at the 5th level of the purple realm. Even if they're stronger than us, there shouldn't be too much of a difference. I'm also completely speechless. Perverts really can't be explained with common sense. Normally, when I deal with these demons, I'm not as tired as I am today. Because of them, all the demon beasts are fleeing towards us, causing the pressure on us to increase. That's true. Today is much more tiring than usual. Does this count as the fish in the moat getting caught in the crossfire? The cultivators present looked at each other, and the helplessness in their hearts grew stronger. However, the people involved were completely unaware of how much of an impact their actions had on everyone else. They only wanted to kill the demonic beasts as soon as possible so that they could obtain victory in this competition. Chapter 3604. Without waiting for Debachin to reply, Xiren had already taken the lead to talk about his own results. I have already hunted more than 2,000 beasts. Same to you. Debachin's lips curled slightly as he said casually. Hearing this, Xiren raised his eyebrows. It seems that our results are about the same. You have to be careful that I don't catch up to you. Let's wait and see. Debachin chuckled. His figure once again turned into a bolt of lightning as he attacked the beasts in the distance. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shanghuan Yinging looked at Xiren and Debachin's extremely excited expressions. The two of them also had a faint smile on their faces. Ever since they set off for Penglai Island, the four of them had been relying on each other for survival. This feeling of going out hand in hand was really good. Originally, the beasts outside the restriction were all gathered together. But now, as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three hunted, a circular vacuum area was constantly expanding. The surrounding beasts could not help but flee in all directions. However, because there were more beasts behind them, they could not escape quickly. So, they could only die at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. The surrounding cultivators left one by one, because continuing to stay here was really too exciting. It would completely destroy their self-confidence. Unknowingly, most of the nearby teams had already left. Only Bailey Hongzhuang's team of 4 was still fighting. In addition, there was also a figure who did not leave like the other teams. Instead, he stood in place and watched the 4 kill the beasts. As time gradually passed, the interest in A.O. Lingxiao's eyes became more and more intense. He found this team to be really interesting. Their outstanding combat strength was even more outstanding than many of the amazing people in the inner hall and the outer hall. It would be great if a few more of such interesting people appeared in Penglai Palace. While A.O. Lingxiao was paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3, they also noticed A.O. Lingxiao, who had not left. Up until now, they still didn't know what A.O. Lingxiao was thinking. First, he inexplicably reminded them. Then, he acted as if he was very interested in them. From beginning to end, A.O. Lingxiao didn't say a word to them. If he was on good terms with them, then he could definitely communicate with them more. However, if he was an enemy, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had a feeling that this was not the case. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 did not make a move. Sooner or later, they would know A.O. Lingxiao's true thoughts. Above the sea, many cultivators couldn't help but observe the situation on the surface of the sea after they returned to the island. In this night, the radiance of the origin energy was even brighter. Therefore, even though they were quite far away, everyone could still determine the situation of the 4 people. However, as time went on, everyone became speechless. Even if their origin power is abnormal, they should be tired after such a high-intensity battle. I suddenly remember the scene when they faced more than 200 cultivators in the outer hall. Not only is their combat strength terrifying, but their endurance is also quite shocking. I don't know how they cultivate. They are so terrifying at such a young age. Chapter 3605. Finally, when the night was at its darkest, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three boarded a small boat and returned to the island. Seeing that the four of them had finally returned, many cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. Previously, they had even thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would fight until dawn. Fortunately, the situation was not as exaggerated as they had imagined. The four of them have finally returned. It seems that the yuan power in their bodies has been exhausted. After fighting for such a long time, it is indeed time for them to return. Even if they have only fought until now, the density of their yuan power has completely surpassed ours. If possible, I really want to know how they usually cultivate and why they're so much stronger than us. Quite a number of cultivators nodded their heads, one after another, when these words were spoken. If there was only one person in this four-man group who was strong, it could be said that his talent was extraordinary. However, since all four of them were so strong, it was likely that it had a lot to do with their cultivation methods. Every genius cultivator was not only talented, but their cultivation methods were also different. After all, none of the cultivators present were mediocre to have reached this stage. However, the difference was still so obvious, so it must be related to their cultivation methods. Xiren sat on the ground. His elegant and handsome face was now filled with a thick gloominess. I never thought that I would lose to you in the end. Beichen, your performance today is a little abnormal. Just thinking about the previous situation, Xiren was speechless. Thinking back to when he had killed more than 200 monsters, Beichen had surpassed him by a few dozen. Later on, he increased his hunting speed. However, he never thought that Beichen would be ahead of him by a whole 1,000 monsters. 1,000 monsters! If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Xiren would not have dared to believe this result. Even if Beichen was stronger than him, it should not be by this much. A total of 5,000 monsters, Beichen had killed 1,000 more than him. This gap was too big. Beichen glanced at Xiren, a devilish smile on his picturesque face. I already told you not to compete with me. This result is not surprising. Even if you're stronger than me, when we were training together a few days ago, you are not this much stronger than me. Xiren was a little speechless. He swore that Beichen's strength this time was definitely much stronger than before. Not only did he leave him in the dust, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying were also left in the dust. The four of them were obviously at the same cultivation level, but Beichen was so much faster than them. This was the problem. Looking at Xiren's confused expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. Beichen has already touched the bottleneck of the 6th level of the Purple Realm. If all goes well, he will break through in a few days. You will definitely lose if you compete with him. Even if they were both at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, a cultivator who had touched the bottleneck and a cultivator who was in the middle were completely different. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren finally understood, he stared at Beichen with wide eyes. So, this is the problem. You hit it too deeply. Beichen spread his hands. I did not hide it. It was you who did not notice. Chapter 3606. When Xiren looked dispirited as he sighed. Ever since we were young, I've only surpassed your cultivation during the period when your cultivation speed was suppressed. Now that I've been caught up, I feel that I won't have any chance to surpass you in the future. Following Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but chuckle. I think you're right. I'm afraid it will be like this in the future. Shangguan Yingying patted Xiren's shoulder and comforted. Before Beichen transformed into the body of destiny, you had never been able to surpass him. Now Beichen's physique is one of the most suitable physiques for cultivation. I'm afraid it will be impossible for you to surpass him in the future. Xiren pretended to be sad and leaned on Shangguan Yingying's shoulder. Sigh, I'm so sad. But maybe I will change into a heaven-defying physique in the future. Then there is a chance for me to make a comeback. Otherwise, I can only be second to Beichen for the rest of my life. Xiren, that is not necessarily the case, Shangguan Yingying said slowly. Hearing this, Xiren's eyes lit up. Ying, do you believe that I still have a chance to win? Shangguan Ying shook her head. You said that you will always be second, but I don't think that is necessarily the case. With Hongzhuang here, you may go from second to third. Haha. Shangguan Ying covered the corner of her mouth and snickered. So if you don't work hard to cultivate, you may become fourth. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three laughed and talked. Some of the surrounding cultivators also heard their conversation, but they were completely speechless. Kill them all? 5,000 demonic beasts. They actually killed them all in a single day? For a moment, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Not many people in the entire Penlai Palace could achieve such a result. It turned out that they didn't come back to rest because their primary energy was exhausted, but because they had completed the hunting mission of 5,000 monsters. This meant that their primary energy was not exhausted yet. Suddenly, everyone couldn't help but curse in a low voice. Even if their strength was extraordinary, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. However, no one knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were completely used to being abused. Whether it was the utilization of their primary energy or their endurance, it was much better than before. After all, it was the best way to improve their strength in a life-and-death situation. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze turned to Ao Lingxiao in the distance. She had noticed that Ao Lingxiao had been watching them during the battle. But when they finished their mission, Ao Lingxiao had already left. In their line of sight, Ao Lingxiao was still alone in the darkness. He seemed out of place with the team around him. There were clearly many people around, but he gave off the feeling that he was the only one here. Wife, what are you looking at? Di Beichun was just about to cultivate to recover his primary energy when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang looking in another direction. He couldn't help but ask. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, he also saw Ao Lingxiao alone in the distance. Are you thinking about why he is talking to us? Bailey Hongzhuang's birthday celebration. Although I don't know the reason, I feel that he is also a person with a story. Chapter 36:07. Although everyone's comments about him are good, I have a feeling that this guy has a gentleman's heart under his unrestrained appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head slightly and saw Di Beichun's confident black eyes. Her lips slowly curled into a bright smile. Your intuition has always been accurate. Nighttime was always a nightmare for the inner palace disciples. Skeletons would appear, liches would chant, and generals would attack. The slightest carelessness would cost them their lives. However, as inner palace disciples, they had no choice but to appear here to increase their cultivation and for the stability of the Shengxian continent. Big brother, how are you? Ren Zimei looked at Ren Ziheng worriedly. Previously, Ren Ziheng had fought the skeleton general alone. The skeleton general was simply too powerful. Even though Ren Ziheng had used all his strength, there were still many wounds on his body. At that time, she had tried her best to help Ren Ziheng, but she had been surrounded by the skeleton army. She could only watch as Ren Ziheng was alone and helpless. Ren Ziheng shook his head and looked at his right hand that was almost broken. At that moment, only a few bones were connected to his flesh. It was as if the slightest pull would completely separate it from his body. The power of darkness lingered on the wound, causing it to show no signs of healing. On the contrary, it was constantly worsening. Don't worry, I'm fine. Ren Ziheng comforted Ren Zimei. However, looking at Ren Ziheng's pale face, his words were not convincing at all. Damn it, ordinary healing medicine is completely useless. Ren Zimei could not help but curse. The sky was already bright, but Ren Ziheng's injuries were very serious. If they did not stop the bleeding soon, the situation would become very bad. Chu Jinfeng's face was also very ugly. It's a pity that we didn't manage to get the healing medicine from the demonic training tower this time. This is really bad. At that moment, Ren Zimei suddenly thought of something and said, That's right, didn't junior sister Bailey give us some healing medicine before we set off? She said that the healing medicine is very effective. Why don't we try it? Hearing Ren Zimei's words, Chu Jinfeng felt a little helpless. Junior Sister Bailey is so young, and the healing medicine was personally made by her. I'm afraid the effects won't be very good, right? So far, apart from the healing medicine that the demonic training tower had brought out, none of the other healing medicines had any effect on the dark energy. If it was that easy to concoct, the doctors and alchemists of the 100 Flowers Gate would have concocted it long ago. Why would they wait until now? Rinzume sighed. Her expression was a little ugly. But we have no other way now except for this method. Let's give it a try. Then let's give it a try, Chu Jinfeng said. In the next moment, Rinzume immediately took out the medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang had given her and sprinkled it on Ren Ziheng's wound. Rinzume's eyes were fixed on Ren Ziheng's wound. Although she knew that it was unlikely to work, she still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. What if it was true? What if there was a miracle? Although the probability of this happening was shockingly small, she was still looking forward to it. However, it didn't take long for the following scene to stun everyone. Chapter 3608. Seeing this, Rinzume and the others could not help but hold their breaths as they stared fixedly at Ren Zixing's wound. They could not help but wonder if their eyes were playing tricks on them. This healing medicine actually had a restraining effect on the dark energy. However, when they saw the same look of shock in the other party's eyes, they knew that their eyes were not playing tricks on them. The medicine was truly effective. The wound is actually healing. Ren Zimei cried out in shock as she stared at Ren Ziheng's wound in astonishment. Even though she had been holding on to a sliver of hope, she knew very well that this was basically impossible. However, this was actually happening right now. The dark energy is fading away. Based on the speed of its fading, it seems to be much more effective than the healing medicine from the Devil Training Tower. Chu Jinfeng widened his eyes as his face filled with disbelief. That's right, the effect is indeed much better than the healing medicine from before. I can feel my wound healing, and the pain is also showing signs of lessening. A sense of joy appeared on Ren Ziheng's face. His wound was very serious. If he did not find a way to deal with the dark energy as soon as possible, he could very well lose too much blood and become seriously injured or even die. Even though he had been comforting Rinzume, his heart was still very pessimistic. He never thought that such a turn of events would appear just as he was on the brink of death. How could he not be overjoyed? I never thought that Junior Sister Bailey's healing medicine would be so effective. This is simply too shocking. Rinzume could not help but stare blankly. Her medical skills are just too amazing. Chu Jinfeng nodded as his expression filled with joy. Indeed, when she had first mentioned it, I did not believe her at all. I only thought that she was being too full of herself. After all, it's simply too difficult to develop a healing medicine that can overcome the dark energy. I never thought that Junior Sister Bailey's healing medicine would actually have such an effect. This means that her medical skills are just too exquisite. This is really unexpected. It seems that we've underestimated Junior Sister Bailey. Her medical skills are not just average. Ren Ziheng slowly said, I remember the last time they accidentally came to the training ground. Junior Sister Bailey had been studying our wounds. At that time, I didn't take it to heart, but now it seems that she did have some insights from her research, so she went back and concocted this healing medicine. Hearing Ren Ziheng's words, Rinzume and Chu Jinfeng both nodded. You're right. We didn't take it to heart before, but it turns out that it's all true. At this moment, Ren Ziheng and the other two looked at the healing medicine in their hands in a completely different light. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the healing medicine, they hadn't thought much of it. It was only because they didn't want to go against Bailey Hongzhuang's wishes that they reluctantly accepted it. They hadn't thought that this healing medicine would be such a heaven-defying treasure. In this training ground, it was completely their life-saving method. Now that I think about it, we were a little too rude when Junior Sister Bailey handed us the healing medicine. Rinzume's expression was a little awkward. Next time when we go back, we must properly thank Junior Sister Bailey. Chapter 3609. For a time, Bailey Hongzhuang's position in the hearts of Ren Ziheng and the others had completely changed. In terms of medical skills, Bailey Hongzhuang had already surpassed many famous doctors. Once Bailey Hongzhuang took out this healing medicine, the sensation it would cause could be imagined. This was a healing medicine that was even more amazing than the one from the MO refining tower. After using the healing medicine, Ren Ziheng's injuries immediately improved. The dark power gradually faded away. Although it had not completely disappeared, the damage it had done to the wounds had decreased. The wounds gradually healed. As long as this continued, Ren Ziheng's life would not be in danger. He would be able to recover in a little more time. This scene did not escape the eyes of the other cultivators. After yesterday's battle, everyone believed that Ren Ziheng's life would be lost. So, many people paid attention to him and felt sorry for him. Suddenly, everyone saw Ren Zimei take out a bottle of healing medicine. Ren Ziheng's injuries, which were already extremely bad, suddenly began to improve. A touch of color gradually appeared on his pale face. This scene completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Suddenly, everyone's eyes lit up as they looked at the healing medicine in Ren Zimei's hand. Is the healing medicine that Ren Zimei took out the same as the one from the demonic tower? I don't think so. This time, the Plunglai Palace sold very little healing medicine. They were all sold out long ago. When Ren Zimei returned to the inner palace, the healing medicine was already gone. If I'm not wrong, this healing medicine seems to be more effective than the other healing medicine. Ren Ziheng's injuries are so serious. Even with the healing medicine from the demonic tower, he will not be able to recover in a short time. But now, the dark power in Ren Ziheng's wounds has clearly decreased. This is not right. Everyone's gazes fell on Ren Ziheng and the other two. They were almost certain that the other party had used a completely different kind of healing medicine. Moreover, this healing medicine's effects were extraordinarily good. If they could have this kind of healing medicine, then their survival in the training ground would be greatly increased. Although the dark power could not be completely eliminated, it could be suppressed so much that it would not affect them much. Thinking of this, some of the cultivators who had a good relationship with Ren Ziheng and the others approached. Ren Zimei, what medicine did you use just now? Jing Tianlang walked over to Ren Zimei's side. Ren Ziheng's injuries are so serious, but after using the medicine, he seems to have improved a lot. As soon as Jing Tianlang finished speaking, the other cultivators started asking questions one after another. Yeah, what kind of medicine is this? I don't think we've met before. Right now, the healing medicine sold by the Magic Refining Tower is very popular. It's not easy to buy it unless we go outside to buy it. However, we don't have the time. Ren Zimei, if you have better healing medicine, don't hide it. After all, we're all teammates. We could buy some next time. That's right. The Inner Palace disciples are all one family. Just tell us. Realizing that everyone's attention had fallen upon them, the faces of Ren Zimei's team of three stiffened. They could not stop themselves from exchanging glances, complicated looks on their faces. Chapter 3610. However, none of them had expected the medicine to be so effective. It had completely exceeded their expectations. As a result, the situation became even more complicated. Everyone had discovered the uniqueness of the medicine and began to ask them about it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the medicine. Apart from that, Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to have told anyone else about it. If they told everyone that the medicine was made by Bailey Hongzhuang, who knew if it would cause trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang? The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang had given them the medicine proved that she truly treated them as good friends. After all, once the effects of the medicine were made known, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Now that she had told them about it without telling anyone else, they could not betray her trust in them. Even if they wanted to tell anyone, they had to obtain Bailey Hongzhuang's permission first. Otherwise, they could not bring unnecessary trouble to Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, the greater the benefit, the more attention it would attract. Perhaps some people with dark intentions would want to take the medicine for themselves. As a result, Rendezvous and the others only glanced at each other and made a decision. Before they obtained Bailey Hongzhuang's permission, they would not tell anyone about it. We only obtained the medicine by chance. We had no idea that it would be effective at all. We're just trying our best, Rendezvous said slowly. Jing Tianlang and the others could not help but frown when they heard Rendezvou's words. They clearly did not believe her. Rendezvous, we're good friends no matter what. We fought side by side many times over the years. You really shouldn't keep something good to yourself, right? That's right. Even if you tell us where the medicine came from, it won't cause any harm to you. Everyone frowned, and some reluctance appeared on their faces. Clearly, they did not believe Rendezvou's explanation. Without a doubt, she was deliberately hiding it from them. Looking at everyone's reaction, Rendezvous and the other two felt somewhat helpless. They knew all too well just how much everyone wanted this healing medicine that could restrain the power of darkness. As long as such a medicine appeared, no one would give it up. For a time, they felt extremely depressed. If he were to reveal the origin of the medicine, he would undoubtedly be letting down Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. But if he didn't say anything, he was afraid that everyone would be estranged from them. If they had known earlier, they would have believed Bailey Hongzhuang's words and paid more attention when using the healing medicine. Then, this situation wouldn't have happened. However, it was useless to think about it now. It's not that we don't want to tell you. It's just that we came across this healing medicine by chance. We really don't know where it came from. Rendezvous said slowly, "If I had known in advance that this healing medicine was so effective, I would have used it when I was injured. Why would I wait until I was on the brink of death to give it a try? Besides, if we really don't want to tell you, we can't possibly use this healing medicine in public. Wouldn't that be asking for trouble?" Chapter 36:11. If Rendezvous said that she didn't know before, everyone didn't believe it, but at this moment, hearing Rendezvou's explanation, everyone gradually believed it. Because they clearly noticed that when Rendezvous and the other two discovered the effect of the healing medicine, they also showed a surprised expression. It could be seen that they didn't know anything about this situation before. "Then where did you get this healing medicine?" Jing Tianlang couldn't help but ask. When we returned to the inner hall, we went to the restaurant of Penglai Island to eat. During the meal, we met a person who called himself a doctor. We had a good chat, so he gave us some healing medicine, saying that the effect was excellent. However, we saw that the other party was very young, so we didn't believe what he said at all. We just thought that he was blowing his own trumpet. For the sake of the other party's face, we still accepted the healing medicine, but no one took it seriously. Just now, because my injury was too serious, ordinary healing medicine had no effect. Rendezvous suddenly thought of this healing medicine, so we wanted to give it a try. I just didn't expect that what the young doctor said was actually true. The effect of this healing medicine is so good, and it can even restrain the dark power. It's really surprising. Rendezvous told the truth half-truthfully. He did get this healing medicine from the hands of a young doctor. He also got it when he was eating in the restaurant, but this person was also their Penglai Palace's disciple. Listening to Rendezvou's words, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Although there were still some doubts in their hearts, they felt that what he said might be true. So that's how it is. I don't know which doctor has such superb medical skills. You didn't contact him after that? Everyone was still a little unwilling. If they could know this doctor, then their life-saving means in this place in the future would be strengthened a lot. Rendezvous shook his head regretfully. At that time, we just happened to meet and had a good chat. He gave us some healing medicine, and we didn't think that he would be so powerful, so we didn't take it seriously. If I knew this, I would definitely ask where he lived, but now I really don't know where to find him. I only hope that I can meet him again next time in the restaurant of Penglai Palace. Chu Jinfeng sighed. You really can't judge a book by its cover. If that doctor wasn't so young, we wouldn't have ignored him. We really missed a great opportunity this time. Which restaurant did you guys go to? What does that doctor look like? Ren Ziheng and the others casually made up some news and told it to everyone. Although it was obviously a lie, it was well made up and successfully deceived everyone. After sending everyone away, the three of them couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. We finally managed to deceive everyone. Fortunately, Big Brother's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. No matter what, as Inner Palace disciples, they'd always been training with everyone else. If they were to offend everyone because of this matter, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to their future development in the Inner Palace. Chapter 36:12. Chu Jinfeng nodded. Today's situation is really beyond our expectations. We should have tested it earlier. Otherwise, we wouldn't have fallen into such an awkward situation just now. Who would have thought that junior sister Bailey's medical skills would be so exquisite? If it were anyone else, they would probably have the same reaction as us. Ren Zimei shook her head and sighed. But the situation now has no impact on us. The next time we go back, we really have to thank junior sister Bailey. If junior sister Bailey is willing to sell the healing medicine, I think junior sister Bailey will soon be very popular in the Penglai Palace. Chu Jinfeng's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on the corner of his lips. Previously, I thought that junior sister Bailey and the other three's popularity in the Outer Palace was too low. Now it seems that I don't have to worry too much. Once she releases the news, I'm afraid that not only the cultivators in the Outer Palace, but also the cultivators in the Inner Palace will take the initiative to get closer to her. What you said is true. Ren Ziheng chuckled. A capable doctor will always be welcomed by everyone at any time. I suddenly feel that we are very lucky. If junior sister Bailey and the others hadn't met us by accident, I'm afraid the situation would be different now. Ren Zimei and the other two exchanged glances. Then, smiles appeared on their faces. The next day, a touch of dawn appeared in the sky. Many cultivators on the island once again took the boat to the distant sea, intending to start the next day's hunting. Among these cultivators, it was not that no one had completed the hunting mission of 5,000 monsters, but they did not have enough confidence in hunting the monsters on the next island, so they had been staying here. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not delay at all and directly went to the next island early in the morning. Obviously, the next island also needed to hunt a certain number of monsters before they could continue. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had been hunting wicked beasts on the island, but the strength of the wicked beasts in front of them was a certain gap, so it was not difficult to solve them. However, according to their observations, the amount of monstrous beasts in this training ground was truly not an ordinary amount. Moreover, the types of monstrous beasts were extremely complicated, and they all specialized in different things. We have been hunting demonic beasts for the past few days. We are now on the 5th island. This speed is pretty fast. Xiren smiled faintly as his gaze fell upon the island in the distance. Beicha nodded. These demon beasts are getting stronger and stronger. According to my estimation, we'll have to stay on the next island or the 2nd island. That's right. It's no longer that easy for me to deal with these demonic beasts. I'm afraid I'll have to do my best to deal with them when we reach the next island, Shangguan Yingying said slowly. The further we go, the fewer cultivators there will be on this island. The pressure we will have to bear when hunting demonic beasts will also increase. However, in this way, we can settle on an island and cultivate in peace. It will be of great benefit to our cultivation. Chapter 36:13. Everything went as Beichan had expected. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others chose the 2nd island. The demonic beasts in the vicinity of the island were extremely powerful. Even with their strength, they had to be careful everywhere. If they were not careful, they would be injured. However, they also knew that only in such an environment could they increase their cultivation at the fastest speed. However, there was one thing that exceeded their expectations. After they stopped on this island, Ao Lingxiao also came to this island. Look, isn't that Ao Lingxiao? Since when did he become so strong? I remember that he had always been training on the first island. I don't know. This guy's actions have always been strange. I don't know what kind of opportunity he got, but his strength suddenly increased. The cultivators on the island looked at Ao Ling Xiao with astonishment in their eyes. Ao Ling Xiao's special order to travel alone was very eye-catching in the outer palace. However, no one went to find trouble with him on normal days. In this training ground, the further back the island was, the less likely it was for new cultivators to appear. In the past few days, there were only 5 people. They were Bailey Hongzhuang's group and Ao Lingxiao's group. In contrast, the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was not strange, because the strength of these 4 people was indeed very strong, and everyone already knew about it. Then why is Ao Lingxiao following us? I feel that it's very strange. Shangguan Ying looked at Ao Lingxiao not far away in confusion. Ever since Ao Lingxiao appeared, they felt that everything was very strange. If Ao Lingxiao's inexplicable warning made them feel very strange, but they could still understand it. However, Ao Lingxiao's attention to them and his following them to this island made them feel somewhat puzzled. The most important thing was that Ao Lingxiao had not said anything to them until now, which made them feel very puzzled. Bailey Hongzhuang also had a trace of doubt in her eyes. I also don't understand. Right now, I can be sure that he is following us on purpose. However, I don't know the specific reason. Aside from being taken care of by Master Long, there is nothing special about the 4 of us. Hasn't this guy always been alone and ignored everyone? Now it's really strange. Xiren frowned. Should I go and ask? Di Beichun shook his head. His expression was very calm. Since he took the initiative to follow us, he must have his reasons. If he wants to say it, he will tell us directly. If he doesn't want to say it, you won't be able to get anything out of him. Now, hearing Di Beichun's words, Xiren couldn't help but sigh. He said he was really not as calm as Di Beichun. Aya, how can you guys be so calm? I really can't hold. In the next second, Shangguan Ying stood up and walked towards Ao Lingxiao. She had to find out what this guy was doing. Seeing that Shangguan Ying had directly set off, Bailey Hongzhuang was just about to call out to her when she was stopped by Di Beichun. Forget it. Since she wants to go, then let her go. Otherwise, with her personality, I'm afraid she won't be satisfied. Chapter 36:14. Shangguan Ying walked to Ao Lingxiao's side. Her face was filled with confusion and anger. Ao Lingxiao, why have you been following us? Ao Lingxiao was not surprised by Shangguan Ying's sudden questioning. I didn't expect you to ask me so soon. I thought you could hold on for a few more days. What nonsense is this? Why do you care when I ask you? Shangguan Ying's anger turned into anger. Tell me clearly, why have you been following us? No reason. Ao Lingxiao said slowly. Shangguan Ying couldn't help but sneer. Are you kidding? You've been following us for no reason? Don't tell me you have nothing better to do. You can think of it that way. Ao Lingxiao's lips curled into an evil smile. He twirled his messy hair with one hand, looking a little rogue. Looking at Ao Lingxiao like this, Shangguan Ying only felt the anger in her heart rising. This guy was too hateful. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll treat you as an enemy. Shangguan Ying's eyes gradually darkened. She didn't have a good temper to accompany Ao Lingxiao here. Ao Lingxiao had been sneaking around without giving a proper reason. She could only treat him as an enemy. Not far away, Xiren saw Shangguan Ying's gradually darkening expression and couldn't help but frown. It seems that Ying's inquiry didn't go well. Maybe they'll fight in the next second. I'll go take a look. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other and said, Let's go together. Okay. When Di Beichun and the others came to Shangguan Ying's side, they could feel the smell of gunpowder coming from her body. She was obviously enraged. Ying, what's the situation now? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Shangguan Yingying coldly glanced at Ao Lingxiao. I asked this guy, but he didn't say anything. Ao Lingxiao looked at Di Beichun and the other two with a faint smile. I'm just here to train. Is there a problem? There's naturally no problem for you to cultivate here. Di Beichun's black pupils were as deep and unfathomable as a black hole. He looked at Ao Lingxiao with a gaze that seemed to be able to see through everything. You and I are both smart people. You must have followed us here for a reason. If you don't want us to treat you as an enemy, you might as well tell us. Di Beichun's voice was mild, as if he was chatting casually. However, an invisible pressure quietly spread out. Ao Lingxiao faced Di Beichun's sharp gaze and was ultimately defeated. Forget it. I don't intend to be your enemy. You don't have to mind it too much, Ao Lingxiao said slowly. Then why are you following us? When Xiren followed up with another question, a hint of hesitation quietly appeared on Ao Lingxiao's face. In the end, he said, I've been following you because I want to confirm one thing. When these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but be stunned. They were even more confused in their hearts. They didn't understand what Ao Lingxiao wanted to confirm from them. Confirm what? Chapter 36:15. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned even more. What is it that you can't say? The puzzlement between when Xiren's brows grew even stronger. You're so strange, it's really too suspicious. I can swear that I have no intention of harming you behind your backs. Otherwise, I'll be struck by lightning. Ao Lingxiao raised 3 fingers and looked serious. If I'm sure of something, I'll tell you immediately. If I'm wrong, I won't disturb you anymore. Seeing this, Xiren couldn't help but look at Di Beichun. He always felt that Ao Lingxiao was weird, which made him very unhappy. Di Beichun stared at Ao Lingxiao. His deep eyes kept changing. I'll believe you for now. I'm indeed trustworthy. Ao Lingxiao's lips curled up. His smile was a bit evil and indifferent. After Di Beichun and the others returned to their original position, Xiren couldn't help but say, Di Beichun, do you really believe this guy? I feel that this guy is too weird. For the time being, I believe him. That guy's appearance is very special. I am certain that we didn't see Ao Lingxiao in the battle in the outer hall. As of now, I can't think of any reason why he would want to be our enemy. If he really is an enemy, he could hide in the dark and think of ways to deal with us. He wouldn't follow us so openly. The success rate is too low. Hearing Di Beichun's words, Xiren's eyes gradually revealed a look of realization. You're right, but I really don't understand what this guy wants to confirm from us. I don't know either. Di Beichun shook his head. They didn't know Ao Lingxiao before. What could Ao Lingxiao want to confirm from them? This was very strange to begin with. In my opinion, let's put this matter aside for now. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. As long as Ao Lingxiao doesn't cause trouble for us, he can follow us if he wants. It's not a big deal. They were only here to train, so there was no need for them to hide anything. When Shui Changdong found out which island Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had stopped at, his face turned ugly. Brother Shui, they stopped at the 7th island. The strength of the demonic beasts near the 7th island is very strong. Although we can deal with the demonic beasts near the 7th island, it is very dangerous. Everyone should train near the 6th island. Fang Tianyi looked at Shui Changdong. He had never imagined that Di Beichun's group of 4 would be so monstrous as to head to the 7th island. In their team, Shui Changdong's strength was the strongest. Shui Changdong had no problem cultivating near the 7th island, but the other cultivators in their team were not as strong. After all, Shui Changdong was their captain and the strongest. The other teammates were not as strong as Shui Changdong. Chapter 36:16. Although he was very depressed about this, Shui Changdong also understood in his heart that perhaps this was the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were stronger than ordinary cultivators. It was because they were really too desperate. This was a completely masochistic cultivation method. With his strength, he could withstand going to the seventh island, but he needed to be careful everywhere. If he was careless, he would be injured. It was very dangerous. It was precisely because of this that he chose to cultivate on the sixth island. It also had the function of training, but it was safer. It was just that the speed of cultivation would be slightly slower. If they stay on the seventh island, it won't be easy for us to find a way to deal with them. Fang Tianyi looked helpless. He originally thought that this was a good task. Who would have thought that it would be so complicated? It actually made him feel helpless. Shui Changdong's face was slightly gloomy. Originally, he hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would stay on the sixth island. He was most familiar with the sixth island, so it would be much easier for him to find a way to deal with them. He did not expect that things would not go as he wished. The situation was completely complicated. For a moment, Shui Changdong even wanted to tell Peng Karue that he could not complete this task because the difficulty was a little too high. However, in the end, after thinking about it, Shui Changdong decided to wait a little longer. He only hoped that a good opportunity would appear in the end. However, at this moment, Peng Lai Palace suddenly issued a new task in this training ground. As soon as this task was announced, all the disciples in the outer palace were attracted by this task. In a short period of time, all the cultivators in the training ground were discussing this new task. Peng Lai Palace has issued a new mission. A new island has suddenly appeared in this training ground. There are many demon beasts gathered on the island. Now, they are issuing a mission for us to go to the island to hunt demon beasts. Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. Are you guys interested? I heard that every time a new island appears, there always seems to be some treasure on it. Although I don't know what kind of treasure it is, it's not bad to go and check it out. They had never been well informed, but recently almost all the cultivators were discussing this matter, so they also knew about it. As far as I know, the islands that appear for the first time are usually very dangerous. If you're not careful, you may lose your life. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, "At present, everyone only knows that a new island has appeared, but we don't know what kind of demonic beasts are on this island. We still have to be more careful." Deep Bachin nodded slightly. Indeed, we'd better not act rashly before figuring out the specific situation. The more information we have, the more insurance we can have. No matter what, this was the first time they had come to this training ground. They didn't know much about the situation here, and they didn't know what the situation was like when the new island appeared. Plus, it was obvious that no one would tell them about the previous situation, so they couldn't act rashly for the time being. Now, many cultivators are ready to make a move. They're thinking about how and when to head to the new island. "Let's act according to the situation," Wen Xiren said. Chapter 36:17. I didn't expect God to treat us so well. Now, such a great opportunity has appeared. Shui Changdong clapped his hands. His originally ugly face instantly regained its vigor. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He was originally reluctant to give up the reward after success. Moreover, he didn't know how to explain to Peng Karue if he gave up. Now that such an opportunity had appeared, it was simply pointing him in the right direction. Brother Shui, although the appearance of a new island is indeed an opportunity, the strength of the demonic beasts on each new island is very powerful. I'm afraid that even if we go there, it won't be easy to find an opportunity to take action. Fang Tianyi's brows were still furrowed. He didn't understand why Shui Changdong was suddenly so excited. It was as if he already knew that they would succeed. No matter what, such an opportunity has appeared. It's better than us not knowing what to do before. Shui Changdong's face was still filled with joy. Originally, it wouldn't be easy to just rely on us to set them up. But now, almost all the cultivators will go to the new island. The size of the island isn't small. Everyone's actions will definitely be very chaotic. We can take this opportunity to think of a way to set them up. Maybe we don't even need to do anything. Just by relying on the power of the demonic beasts, we can accomplish all of this effortlessly. Brother Shui is right. At least we still have a chance of success. Every time a new island appears, a lot of cultivators will die. It's already very dangerous. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three don't have any allies. As long as no one helps them, our actions will be very easy. Hearing that, Fong Tianyi nodded. Indeed, I hope they will also appear on the new island. Not long after the mission was released, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three noticed that many cultivators on the 7th island had stood up and decided to go to the new island. It was said that the rewards for killing the demonic beasts on the new island would be very generous. Anyway, everyone had to risk their lives to hunt demonic beasts here. Going to the new island was also risking their lives. Since the danger was similar, naturally, they would choose the place with higher benefits. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three weren't in a hurry. However, not long after, all the cultivators on the 7th island had left. The originally lively island suddenly became deserted. However, at that moment, other than Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, there was still one person who hadn't left. That person was Ao Ling Xiao. Seeing that Ao Ling Xiao was still there, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask, "Hey, everyone has already set off for the new island. Why are you still here?" "I'm not interested in the new island. I'm only interested in you guys." The corner of Ao Ling Xiao's lips curled up. "If you go, I'll go with you. If you don't, I won't go either." Looking at Ao Ling Xiao's indifferent expression, Shangguan Yingying rolled her eyes. Incurable. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were somewhat helpless towards Ao Ling Xiao. They didn't know what this guy was really doing, but they could still feel that Ao Ling Xiao really didn't have any intention of harming them. "Let's go," Di Beichun said slowly. "Since everyone has already set off, there's no point in us staying here. Why don't we go and take a look?" Chapter 36:18. After seeing Di Beichun and the other three set off, Ao Ling Xiao stood up and followed behind Di Beichun and the other three. Sitting on the small boat, Shangguan Yingying looked at the small boat that was following them with a helpless expression. This Ao Ling Xiao is really a follower. Are you going to let him continue to follow us like this? What else can we do? Di Beichun raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile. "I think there must be something wrong with this guy's sneaky behavior. Why don't we capture him and interrogate him? We'll definitely know the answer." Shangguan Yingying squinted her eyes, and a ruthless look flashed across her eyes. Xiren shook his head and said, "Forget it. According to Beichun and my observation, this guy is probably stronger than us. It's impossible to capture him and interrogate him." "Stronger than us?" Shangguan Yingying was stunned. "Is that true? If this guy is so strong, why is he still an Outer Palace disciple? There must be a reason." Di Beichun said slowly, "He's alone. Although the Outer Palace disciples dare to talk about him, none of them are enemies with him. He must be capable. That's why you can conclude that he doesn't have the intention to harm us. Otherwise, with his strength, he could just attack us directly. There's no need for him to go through so much trouble. Am I right?" Bailey Hongzhuang said. Di Beichun smiled elegantly and nodded. "That's right. So let's just let it be. It's hard to believe that such a sloppy guy is an expert." Shangguan Yingying shook her head and still had a look of disbelief on her face. "You can't judge a book by its cover." The new island was not far away from the 7th island. It didn't take long for the four of them to arrive. Looking around, they realized that there were many cultivators gathered on the new island. Almost all the cultivators in the Outer Palace who were free were there. "Wow, there are so many people here," Shangguan Yingying exclaimed. From the looks of it, there must be many cultivators who came here from the Outer Palace after seeing the mission. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and in her line of sight, there were already a lot of cultivators gathered on the periphery of the island. Indeed, the reward for this task is not low. Presumably, as long as the cultivators are not in seclusion, they have all come. Let's go up and take a look. I wonder what kind of monsters are on this new island. Xiren said with a smile. After putting away the boat, the four of them squeezed into the large group. As they gradually walked forward, they finally found out about the monsters on the island. Six-legged bright scorpion, Di Beichan said slowly. The six-legged bright scorpion strength is equivalent to a Purple Realm 5th level cultivator. Everyone can deal with it. I just hope that the eight-legged bright scorpion won't appear here. The eight-legged bright scorpion strength is equivalent to a Purple Realm 6th level cultivator. There are so many monsters on this island. If an eight-legged bright scorpion appears, the danger level will increase by a lot. All the cultivators of Penglai Island had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The cultivators of Penglai Palace were even stronger than the average 5th level of the Purple Realm. Chapter 36:19. Once surrounded by the eight-footed bright scorpions, even a Purple Realm 7th level or Purple Realm 8th level cultivator would find it hard to survive. Hearing Di Beichan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other with a serious expression. The current situation wasn't clear yet. If it was only the six-footed bright scorpions, they wouldn't have to worry too much. However, if it was the eight-footed bright scorpions, they would have to be careful. Even if they had a treasure like the Chaos Ring, they couldn't use it in front of everyone, so they had to be careful. Ao Ling Xiao was still following behind Di Beichan's group of four. Many cultivators, after seeing this scene, had a thick look of surprise on their faces. Hasn't Ao Ling Xiao always been alone? Why is he with Di Beichan's group now? Di Beichan's group has always been a team of four. Other than Li Shangkai, who died in their hands, I haven't seen them close to any other cultivators in the Outer Palace. Maybe they're facing each other. Because they usually don't interact with other cultivators, it makes sense that they're together now. If that's the case, then it's interesting. Ao Lingxiao's strength isn't weak. With the five of them together, they're even stronger. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but frown when she saw that everyone had grouped them together. They weren't together with Ao Lingxiao, this weird guy. Ao Lingxiao ignored everyone's gazes. It was as if it had nothing to do with him, no matter how they looked at it. On this new island, the reward for killing a six-footed bright scorpion is equivalent to killing 4 demonic beasts on other islands. This reward can be said to be 4 times greater. That's right. This is a good opportunity. As long as we can kill more six-footed bright scorpions, we can exchange them for treasures when we return. Although they would soon have to fight with demonic beasts, many cultivators present were very excited because the reward was very generous. As long as they exchanged for enough cultivation resources, they could increase their breakthrough speed. Looks like we have to work hard to hunt more demonic beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and looked around. Almost all the surrounding cultivators had a strong fighting spirit in their eyes, as if they were ready to fight against the six-footed bright scorpion. When Zyra nodded, "This island is extremely large. If the entire island is filled with six-footed bright scorpions, their numbers would be terrifying. According to the information I've learned, it seems that every time a new island appears in this training ground, the disciples of Penglai Palace will clear out the monsters on this island together and then gradually transform it into a new island that can be trained on." I see. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. There are too many demonic beasts on this island. Only by working together can we quickly get rid of these demonic beasts. If there are too few people, it will be impossible to get rid of them. The cultivators of Penglai Palace did not waste any time and immediately approached the inner part of the island. At the same time, the aura of Yuanli fluctuated continuously. Any team of six-footed bright scorpions that they encountered had already started fighting. Battle circles had already formed. Chapter 36:20. The battle broke out on this new island. The disciples of Penglai Palace had already surrounded the entire island and were constantly attacking inside. Various kinds of powerful yuan qi undulations rippled out unceasingly. Various kinds of splendid martial skills were displayed unceasingly. The sound of explosions resounded loudly, and the entire island seemed to have started to tremble. This kind of battle was undoubtedly extremely shocking. The fluctuations of the battle were even more terrifying. At this time, almost everyone had put down their personal grudges. Everyone's goal was to eliminate the six-footed bright scorpions in front of them. The six-footed bright scorpions obviously hated the human cultivators who suddenly appeared in front of them. They were constantly attacking the human cultivators. A strong smell of blood drifted on this island. The ground was gradually dyed red with blood. The corpses of the six-footed bright scorpions fell one by one. However, in this process, many cultivators were injured or even died. Bailey Hongzhuang's team of 4 was undoubtedly the weakest among the many teams. However, their fighting strength was also very strong. Ao Lingxiao still disdained to team up with other cultivators at this time. He was still alone, as if he was already used to all of this. However, in this situation where it was easy to be surrounded by the six-footed bright scorpions, Ao Lingxiao was very dangerous alone. Fortunately, he was quite strong and was not injured. Di Beichun looked at Ao Lingxiao not far away and suddenly said, Ao Lingxiao, if you don't mind, let's temporarily team up on this island. How about it? Ao Lingxiao, who was in the middle of the battle, couldn't help but be stunned after hearing Di Beichun's words. His eyes flashed with deep surprise. He instinctively wanted to refuse, but after seeing Di Beichun's sincere gaze, he thought for a moment and nodded. Okay. He understood that Di Beichun wanted him to join the team, not because Di Beichun's team was lacking in manpower, but because Di Beichun wanted to help him. With his current situation, although there was no problem dealing with these six-footed bright scorpions, he was naturally not as safe as a team working together. Moreover, the reason why he was still able to cope now was that his origin power was extremely sufficient. However, as the battle dragged on, he would no longer have the peak battle prowess that he had now. At that time, he would definitely be surrounded by danger. It was because of this that Di Beichun asked him to join the team. If he had seen pity or sympathy in Di Beichun's eyes, he would have disdained it. However, Di Beichun did not. He had only chosen to join because he saw sincerity and appreciation in Di Beichun's eyes. A smile suddenly appeared on that unrestrained and unruly face. The reason he had been following Di Beichun was to confirm one thing, but now that he gradually understood Di Beichun's character, he suddenly felt a sense of admiration. Although this young fellow had a devilish face that made people very unhappy, it was hard not to admire his character. Smart, wise, and steady. With all these characteristics gathered in one person, it was truly perfect. Perhaps it was indeed a good choice to be friends with them. Chapter 36:21. Shouldn't you be the one who's distracted? How do you know I'm distracted if you don't look at me? Ao Lingxiao looked at Shangguan Yingying with a faint smile. There was still a trace of evil and unruly smile on his lips, but there was a trace of sincerity in his eyes. Shangguan Yingying was stunned. I'm too lazy to care about you. I'm too lazy to look at you. The cultivators of Penglai Palace were indeed powerful. Their combat power was much stronger than the cultivators of the outside world. This could be seen from the efficiency of the battle. The six-footed scorpion was considered very powerful among the Red Realm Level 5 cultivators. Ordinary Purple Realm Level 5 cultivators would have to struggle to deal with the six-footed scorpion, but it was not difficult for the disciples of Penglai Palace to deal with it. Our progress is not slow. If we continue to sweep at this speed, I'm afraid we can kill all the six-footed scorpions on this island in less than a month. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face had a bright smile. Fortunately, this new island was not dangerous. Shangguan Yingying nodded. It should be so. After this mission is over, let's go back to Penglai Palace to rest. With their ability, it was not unusual for them to be outside. It was just that they wanted to go back and relax after staying here for so long. Okay, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. When the time comes, we can ask A.O. Ling Xiao if he has confirmed what he wants to confirm. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but turn to A.O. Ling Xiao. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, A.O. Ling Xiao was slightly stunned and said, "What I said is not so easy to confirm. This matter is very important. I must confirm it before I say it. However, after this matter is said, it depends on whether you agree or not." Di Beichun raised his good-looking eyebrows, his brow furrowed in thought. "That depends on what you want to tell us. If I confirm it, it is related to you." As A.O. Ling Xiao's voice fell, the relaxed expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but change. Their eyes then condensed on A.O. Ling Xiao. If this matter was related to Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Xiren, or even Shengwan Yingying, they would not care too much because they were sure that they had no interaction with A.O. Ling Xiao before. What A.O. Ling Xiao wanted to confirm was probably related to Master Long. However, now that A.O. Ling Xiao said that this matter was related to Di Beichun, then this was not necessarily the case. Di Beichun's origin until now. They always thought that the reason why Di Beichun for so many years had no news of his parents was that his parents on Penglai Island. It was precisely because it was isolated from the outside world that Si Tuyin had spent so many years helping to search for any useful information. Could it be that A.O. Ling Xiao knew something about Di Beichun's origin? After A.O. Ling Xiao noticed the sudden change in the gazes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. His originally uncertain expression seemed to have become a bit more certain. "It's related to me?" Di Beichun's eyes gradually deepened. "You and I have no relationship before. What you want to say is related to me." Chapter 36-22. Brother Shui, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the other three actually formed a team with A.O. Ling Xiao. This is really strange. Didn't A.O. Ling Xiao never form a team with anyone? Looking at them, they seem to be chatting happily. Fong Tianyi frowned. Shui Changdong's face also revealed a puzzled expression. A.O. Ling Xiao's actions this time are really strange. Although this guy's temperament is very strange, his strength is not weak. Now that he has formed a team with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, this will undoubtedly add some trouble to our next operation. Looking at the five figures chatting happily in the distance, Shui Changdong gradually frowned. He realized that the situation was really getting more and more troublesome. Originally, it was very difficult to get rid of Di Beichun and Xiren. Now that A.O. Ling Xiao had joined, none of the three people were simple. Moreover, he still had to keep Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengwan Yingying, which undoubtedly increased the difficulty of the matter. Brother Shui, I also observed their battle today. From their performance, the six-footed bright scorpion doesn't seem to be difficult for them. It seems that it won't be easy for us to get rid of them with the help of the six-footed bright scorpion. Fong Tianyi now felt that the difficulty of this matter was too high. Even if the reward was rich, it would not be worth it if they suffered a double loss. Don't worry, I found another thing today. Shui Changdong smiled. What is it? This island not only has the six-footed bright scorpion, but also the eight-footed bright scorpion. Once this was said, Fong Tianyi and the other cultivators could not help but be stunned. Their faces suddenly became nervous. Eight-footed bright scorpion? That's right. When I went deeper today, I found the existence of the eight-footed bright scorpion. Currently, everyone only saw the periphery of the island and is not clear about the situation inside. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid that only the periphery of the island has the six-footed bright scorpion, but the inside of the island is the eight-footed bright scorpion. Shui Changdong glanced at everyone and continued. If the six-footed bright scorpion cannot cause trouble for them, the eight-footed bright scorpion is not so easy to deal with. Once everyone knew about this situation, they would definitely choose to join forces to deal with the demonic beasts. At that time, I can suggest that the male disciples lead the way while the female disciples bring up the rear. I believe that no one will reject this suggestion. Only in this way can we successfully separate them. As long as they separate, I will guide Di Bachin and the others to the gathering place of the eight-legged bright scorpions. Once they are surrounded, so what if they are strong? They won't be able to make it out alive. The corners of Shui Changdong's mouth curled up slightly. The malicious and ruthless light in his eyes grew even more intense. However, he was secretly delighted in his heart. He had thought for a long time before coming up with such a foolproof plan. The eyes of Fong Tianyi and the others lit up, and they instantly gained a bit of confidence. Brother Shui, your idea is really great. If everything really goes as planned, then we will definitely succeed. As long as we're able to complete this mission, Senior Brother Peng and the others will definitely value us even more in the future. In the future, we'll be able to receive their care after we go to the inner hall. That's undoubtedly the best outcome. Shui Changdong chuckled. Chapter 36-23. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5, along with many cultivators from the Penglai Outer Palace, hunted wicked beasts on the new island. Whenever their Yuanli was exhausted, everyone would retreat some distance to cultivate and restore their Yuanli. On this day, everyone continued to advance into the island as usual. Although only 7 days had passed, the number of six-footed bright scorpions that died every day was astonishing. Because of this, everyone also deeply understood the huge reproductive ability of monsters. The number of six-footed bright scorpions on the entire island could be said to be terrifying. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were fighting with the wicked beasts, a cry of surprise came from the front. 8-footed bright scorpions. There are 8-footed bright scorpions among the monsters. Hearing this cry, the surrounding cultivators couldn't help but be stunned. Then, their eyes flashed with deep surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't expect 8-footed bright scorpions to appear. Beichun, your judgment is right. 8-footed bright scorpions really appeared. It seems that the next cleanup work won't be so easy. Xiren looked at Di Beichun and sighed. Di Beichun's eyes became more serious. It seems that these 8-footed bright scorpions are probably in the center of the island. Everyone has to be more careful if they continue to fight. If we are surrounded by 8-footed bright scorpions, even the 5 of us won't have a good time. Don't worry, we will just follow the team. Generally, there won't be any problems. Ao Lingxiao seemed very indifferent, as if he didn't care about this news at all. Seeing that Ao Lingxiao still didn't care, Di Beichun and the others smiled faintly and shook their heads. They didn't know when Ao Lingxiao's indifferent temperament started. They really couldn't imagine what could make Ao Lingxiao care. Feeling the gaze of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but say, "Everyone came here to hunt monsters to get more points. There's no need to lose your life for this. I don't like to be a hero, and I don't like to look at other people's high and mighty leaders. I'm just happy and carefree by myself." You're carefree. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slightly raised. Ao Lingxiao's words explained why he was always alone. But thinking about it, she felt that Ao Lingxiao's view was very clear. In comparison, perhaps their obsession was deeper, so they couldn't be so carefree and indifferent to everything. However, although your temperament is carefree, I think there are still some things in your heart that you can't see through of things. Ao Lingxiao, Ao Lingxiao, Ao of Ao Lingxiao, of Ao. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but be stunned. He saw the wisdom and understanding in the former's eyes, as if she had seen through everything. Suddenly, Ao Lingxiao laughed in a low voice. I suddenly understand why Master Long looks at you in a different light. You are indeed powerful. Seeing that Ao Lingxiao had indirectly admitted to his words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile quietly widened. In this world, Even the most carefree person would have some things that they couldn't let go of. Chapter 36:24. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to advance, they would occasionally see an 8-footed bright scorpion among the 6-footed bright scorpions. Seeing this scene, they also understood that this should be the gathering place of the 6-footed bright scorpions. It was just that some 8-footed bright scorpions would occasionally appear here. Only when they went deeper would they enter the territory of the 8-footed bright scorpions. Because there weren't many 8-footed bright scorpions, it wasn't difficult for them to deal with them. It was just that their advancement speed would be slightly slower than a few days ago. Gradually, the cultivators of the Penglai Outer Palace found it more and more difficult to deal with the 6-footed bright scorpions, because the number of 8-footed bright scorpions was gradually increasing. On this day, Xue Changdong proposed that the stronger male cultivators lead the way in front, because the 8-footed bright scorpions were appearing more and more frequently. Moreover, they didn't seem to be evenly distributed. There were more and less of them. Therefore, everyone had to explore the path first. After exploring where it was more dangerous, everyone would deal with it together. The female cultivators were mostly weaker than the male cultivators, so it was more appropriate for them to take care of the fish that got caught in the net at the back. Following Xue Changdong's suggestion, most of the cultivators present nodded in agreement. At this moment, everyone was a disciple of the Penglai Palace. Naturally, they needed to work together to deal with these monsters. In the past, the cultivators of the Penglai Palace would often make the same arrangements when they encountered such a situation. I didn't expect Xue Changdong to be so protective of the fairer sex. He actually proposed to let the female cultivators stay at the back. This way, I'm afraid many female disciples have a very good impression of him. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile as she spoke slowly. Ao Lingxiao casually glanced at Xue Changdong, who was not far away, and said, "This guy usually likes to act like a hero. However, his strength is also one of the top in the Outer Palace, so his words have a lot of appeal. Don't talk about others. In my opinion, he might be much better than you." Shangguan Yingying shrugged. Ao Lingxiao suddenly smiled sarcastically. "You're blind. According to my understanding, although this guy looks dignified on the surface, he's done a lot of bad things behind the scenes. Most of the time, it's this gentlemanly appearance that makes it easy to trick people. If it was someone like me, I'm afraid no one would believe me." Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but be stunned by Ao Lingxiao's words. She felt that Ao Lingxiao's words were very reasonable. "You know yourself. Well, with your appearance, no one will pay attention to you. Of course I know myself. I never ask about anything that has nothing to do with me, whether it's murder or arson, whether it's a gentleman or a despicable person. It's enough for me to see through them. If others can't see through them, they deserve trouble." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei Chun looked at each other, and then looked at Xue Changdong in the distance. From the information revealed by Ao Lingxiao, this Xue Changdong was not a good person. Although Xue Changdong looked righteous and awe-inspiring, compared to the wanton and unrestrained Ao Lingxiao, they still believed in Ao Lingxiao. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.